what you're seeing right here, that is Osyrus.
Yeah.
And what I did was I literally just I literally just went into Hero Forge, selected like demon or like half demon, and I kept on going from there. And
Well,
I
aren't
just
the
and then I just recorded the entire process,
okay?
which we can actually begin by pressing the
I was gonna say,
space
don't they
bar.
have tiefling
They do not.
as an option? Really?
They just have half demon
Hmm. Okay.
or demon. I forget exactly which one,
I was gonna
but
say though. I mean, I since he was a ringmaster, if I recall correctly, like a circus ringmaster.
he was the adopted child of the ringmaster.
Oh right. Okay.
It was a little vague as to what Osyrus actually did in the circus. I do know that, of course, BooBoo the Joly was the circus clown, so the he was the break act, in between
Yeah.
bits. And because of the fact that
But I think though
yeah,
that he needs a that. Well, I sincerely hope that you gave him a top hat and like a freaking suit coat, because I honestly really like imagine him either in that or like one of those what like the half coats, I think they're called, that a ship captain always wore.
yeah,
You know what I'm
I think
talking
it's
about,
I
right?
think what you're talking about is a tailcoat.
Thank you. Yes, I always imagine him in a tailcoat,
I
which would have just been epic.
I thought about it. I really, really did. But the thing is, like, I didn't want to misdirect in the sense that he isn't the ringmaster, And I get
Hmm.
the feeling uh, that is a very ringmaster thing. What's up, Root of all beers? How you doing? That I was not expecting you this early. I was expecting at least a couple minutes. But
Well,
yeah, but also you'll see this on the recording here. Hero Forge added an arm length bar. I
people's arms do come in varying lengths, so it
they
makes
do.
sense.
I just wasn't expecting that this quickly, and
Hmm.
the fact that it is here was a pleasant surprise. I have to say, it was a very pleasant surprise. And actually, because Root of all beers, or just beers, because beers is here, when we get
Hello, beers. My name is Carl.
all right, we can do that. So
I
once we
can't
get a
hear
few
your
things,
response because I'm not actually a part of the stream, but
I mean, you could check it out on Twitch at Anvil-Runelord.
I'm not actually on Twitch.
I
But
mean,
either way.
this is true, but you don't necessarily need an account to watch the VOD.
Mm.
Uh, once we get, we can actually do this now. Actually, if you want to listen to something, because Root of all beers has been sending me, if I'm not mistaken, homebrew weapons and homebrew
Ooh.
magics. So let me send me a few of them. So
Ah,
I'll have to
you
find
had the
them.
same idea. You were giving him the hat, the coat and tails. Yep. Hmm.
Yep. Yeah. Like I said, I went through a couple of them. I went through a couple of them because I genuinely did not know how vibrant to make him. And something that you will notice actually is that I made the mistake of forgetting which of the two of them was a bard. So the early designs are.
Oh,
I thought Osyrus was the
very much
bard at
more of a bard.
first. I
No.
like like that was what I was
Well,
originally going with, and then I remembered. Wait,
on the other hand,
no,
though,
he's
I mean,
not.
there is a flavor. He does have a flavor.
He's got the
He
flair
did
to him,
have
yeah.
a flavor. Yeah, he does have a flavor of the bard to him, but that's mainly because they are both performers.
Yes.
And he did choose the charlatan charlatan background, which, excuse me, very much does contribute to the theory of it. In fact, it wouldn't surprise me at all if the player did decide to subclass into bard for um, at least a couple of different levels.
Mm-hmm.
Because that would have really fit in with the character, because the character very much was a performer.
Naturally, yeah. I went through a couple of different hats because, obviously as a fucking performer or something of that nature, you gotta have a hat.
You should have given him at least sampled the top hat, because I know that he wouldn't have, because that wouldn't have been part of his character, but that would have been cool just to see.
Yeah, I don't even think I saw the top hat while I was scrolling, actually.
It
Which
was
is which
there.
is, which is a crying shame that I just didn't notice it. You know.
But I mean, the Indiana Jones hat really does kind of work.
Well, thank you.
I mean, that is totally an Indiana Jones hat.
I know it's well. There is one more that's a better Indiana Jones hat, but that one's also very nice. This one was sent to me by Beers, called "The Circlet of Feral Instinct." I'm going to read this out to you, so you were playing a druid in our current campaign, so I think this one you'll have a few choice
Well, the
words
hero
for it.
campaign, yes.
A
I would
crown.
like to. I
Yeah.
would like to. At least get back to Smoke at one point in time, because he never really did let his nastiness show through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But anyway, so
A crown of braided vines and tree bits, embroidered with furs, feathers, and animal trinkets. All the animal pieces were given to you as a token to helping nature along the path, and each gift brings you closer to the animal that is inside within you. Fury of the Beast. If you make an attack while in wild shape form, you can add additional attack equal to the Dex modifier, maximum of 2 additional attacks, of the creature you have taken shape. This will not be added to the creatures with multi-attack. So basically, it allows you to be faster. Let you attack a couple more times. And Strength of the Beast.
that actually would really help, because a lot of those lower level beast forms that he has access to, they just do one attack.
Shot does 10,067 damage to the two-headed giant. Ow.
Sorry about that.
No, that's right.
Omen over here found himself not necessarily a legendary bow, but like a rank B bow.
Purple.
Yeah, like a purple colored bow, and there's like 1 or 2 more colors that are higher than that, and that's it. He found a high level bow and decided to give it to his low level archer class, like his level 3 archer. He himself, his main account is level 20. He found that bow, sent it to his level 3 archer, and has been one-shotting enemies.
I already got top 2 by a GM, too.
I see the moment where you realize that he was the sorcerer and not the bard.
Yeah, I realized that, and I realized, oh, right. And so I had to rack my brain about what fucking pose to give this guy.
Mm-hmm. Now,
Yeah.
interestingly enough, that circlet sounds really cool.
Well, I'm not even done with that one yet, because there's another effect.
But, I mean,
Strength
in all
of the
honesty,
Beast.
He's already like halfway there, since he already does like braid,
Mm-hmm.
Parts of animals into his hair as it is.
Mm-hmm.
that
2
is a
levels
thing of-
after reaching your max CR cap for wild shape, raise your CR cap by 1 level.
Oh God, I would want that. Oh, I want that so bad. Because and I'll tell you why. Because your normal, with the exception of the Circle of the Moon,
Mm-hmm.
all the other druids classes, they max out at level 1, at CR 1, right?
Yeah.
Which for me personally was a sad moment when I discovered that, because a polar bear, which is definitely what he would have tried to wild shape into at some point, is a CR2.
Ah, yeah.
So the ability to increase the your CR rating by at least 1 would actually allow him access to that, which would be like phenomenal.
Anything that increases your power is obviously going to be awesome. I think we can all agree on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember having any issue with that one specifically. I just didn't understand it all that much when I was when I first read it. Actually,
Okay.
having to deal with Druid's bullshit has opened my mind. Has opened my eyes to the horror that awaits me if you should find this. But this is the item. This is the item that I think this was the first item he sent my way. It's an item that is made for bards. Now, whether or not this is an item that only bards can use, I do not know. It just says Root's Table of Homebrew, so I'm guessing it's just bardic inspired.
Right.
But this one is the Call of the Sirens. A siren's calling is so entrancing that even the most devout husbands may fall victim to their murderous music. Interestingly, a spiteful tinkerer found out about her husband being unfaithful. This is what started a series of chained events to create the horn that is known as the Call of the Sirens. Using the first of its kind to lure her husband into a trap within a sea cave unknown. Lore still states that the remains are still trapped in the cave, regretting his poor life choices that led him there.
That's why you never want to sleep around on your gnomish wife.
Specifically the gnomes. They love their toys, and they know how to make them hurt.
You know she was a gnome. You know that was like a gnome character. There's no question about that. I mean, don't get me wrong. It would definitely be like elaborate enough for a high elf.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure that a high elf would be much more painful.
Well, I think a high elf would just skip the fucking Call of the Sirens and then just tie your ass to a boat.
Yeah, probably.
I think it would be a very direct. I think it'd be a very direct fuck you, not quite as direct as a half-orc wife, but very. She would let you know that something is definitely going to be painful.
Oh yeah. Who was that?
What?
I apologize. Someone just like logged into the chat and then logged out again. I have no idea who it was.
It might have been Omen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Liberty Prime, was it?
I did not see the name. I was actually I left the I've got it full screened.
Mm-hmm.
I did leave the full screen to see if I could find out who it was, but yeah, no, it didn't. I didn't catch it in time. Either way.
Yeah, it was. It might have been him. Probably was him.
Mm-hmm. Any rate.
We'll get to the second bard
Interesting
item.
color that actually works really well. Actually.
Oh yeah, yeah. I definitely thought that. Once I found that particular purple, I was all for it. Unless you're talking about the hat.
Well, the whole thing altogether actually works fairly well. I knew I wanted it to be.
I knew I wanted it to be colorful.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I had to consider the historical colors. Because like reds and blues and purples, they're a very regal color, of course. But this is a bit more of a magical setting where those colors are a bit more accessible, and we're also talking about it's still a circus, so they need to be bright colors, they need to be vibrant colors, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but purple is one of the most vibrant fucking colors there is, especially when you get it to be that. Yeah.
In medieval times, it did signify royalty because the dye for using purple, the dye for making purple cloth was actually so expensive.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's why red and blue and purple was royal colors.
Well, and I did think that honestly, when the character was being played, I did imagine Osyrus to be more like red, black, and gold.
Mm-hmm.
But the purple works.
And I get the feeling that if I had a more vivid memory of how Osyrus and BooBoo were played, I think I would have had a much more accurate color scheme to what the players were thinking of when they played them.
Yeah, unfortunately, they were only along with us for these particular characters were only with us for 3 sessions?
2 sessions officially. Then there was a session where both of them were around, but they were called back to the circus because of the bullshit that was happening. And then BooBoo's player left because of her schoolwork and her work, and then Osyrus's player was all like, well, it doesn't really make sense if Osyrus is here and BooBoo's not, so
Right.
I'm just gonna make a new character. And I'm like, sure, perfect.
I mean, it's understandable.
Yeah, I totally get it. I totally get it, and I even went out of my way to let Osyrus's player know, hey, just so you know, I'm leaving the door open for you guys. You know, at any point in time, y'all can just come right the fuck back. Up until the end. But
well, we're not here to talk about that.
oh, of course
At any rate.
not. Let's see. Properties of the Call of the Siren. Only a handful exist in the world because the materials needed are difficult to obtain, and there is only one book that tells you how to create it. The Dungeon Master has the option to let the player acquire the item as a reward, or to create the item from scratch by acquiring the instruction manual. A will of its own, so this one's obviously going to Kalu at some point.
Yeah, he likes the sentient weapons, that's for sure.
Yeah, a little bit of a... Oh, we're switching over to BooBoo now. But yeah, little known fact. One of my players...
BooBoo was a clone.
He was. Full-on clown.
Did they even have a template? Did they even have a template for that?
I don't think it's an official template, but there are enough people out there with, like... You can obviously find the websites that showcase them. I think it might have been in, like...
Okay.
The unofficial, made official, because Witches of the Coast found them and were like, oh, sure, we can totally do this. Let's include this in another expansion or something. I had to fiddle around with the hairstyles a bit. I found one that I really liked fairly quickly, but I had to double check, make sure that none of the others were better options. But the in-joke for Kalu is his player, for whatever reason, keeps on finding the sentient weapons in my campaigns.
Well, the first one you gave to him.
I did.
The first one you gave to him.
I did.
So
now, straight up given to him because I wanted to have that wrench in the system, because that campaign he's an evil man, and his sword is a lawful good greatsword that constantly fights him in regards to like what she thinks is right. Do not mistake this horn to have a full-blown sentience. Okay, it's out the window. But it has taken attributes to feel closer to its kin. Those creating the item will be automatically attuned to it. Other users must have a charisma of 14 or higher before attuning to the weapon. Attuned players may use the item's power 3 times every long rest. By attuning the horn, you are proficient in it. Charm the Charmer. Although you may not be musically gifted, you can still charm it to grant you... Although you may not be musically gifted, you can still charm it to grant you its powers during a long rest. To do so, you must sing to it by succeeding a skill check of 16 on performance.
Ooh.
You receive a +5 bonus modifier if you actually roleplay the singing for 20 seconds. Oh my.
Are you sure you want to, you want him to, well, I could see him doing like Diggy Diggy Hole or something like that.
I know a song that gets on everybody's nerves.
Right? Jeez.
I might give him a -5 penalty if he pisses me off with the song. Good luck attuning to it now, motherfucker.
Right. Well, he probably still would. Oh, look at that. I rolled a 21. Jeez.
This will allow you to use one charge of the item's effects. Another option is to throw away the performance roll altogether and have the player roleplay for 45 seconds to spend one charge before needing another long rest. So basically, it's just telling you a more playful way of using it. An unusual weapon indeed. Not many of its kind are seen throughout the world, so not many are familiar on how to wield this weapon. It can be rather It can be wielded by either hand as an action or bonus action to blow into the conch horn. Hitting its target reliably doesn't depend on accuracy, but rather your performance to play the horn. Using a d20 plus your charisma modifier will determine if you have blown the horn strong enough to damage the target's armor class or not. So it's basically allowing you to use your performance as your dexterity or strength mod.
Okay, yeah. No, that makes sense, actually.
Owners say that
How
about...
much damage does it do?
We'll get to that. Owners say that about 40 feet is its effective range, while records have shown attacks up to 120 feet, but with more difficulty. Disadvantage to land the attack. When the attack lands, the horn will deal 1d4 plus charisma modifier in psychic damage. So, I guess that answers your question.
Especially for a stand-up weapon. Does that have a is that targeted or is that AoE?
Let's keep reading and find out. Secret in the music. This weapon has the power of a siren from lore, charming weak-willed creatures to their doom. When the attack connects, the user may expend a charge to cast a charming effect. The target must make a charisma saving throw of 13 DC or higher. If the player is level 8 or above, the DC is set to 16. Now, I think this means 8 or above in Bard class, but I could be wrong. The reason why I suspect that is because this is listed under, like, the Bard items.
Mm-hmm.
I could be mistaken on that. Anyway. If the target fails its saving throw, it is now charmed for the next 30 minutes. The charmed effect ends if the target is damaged aside from the horn. The target may make another saving throw at the end of the target's turn, and every 3 turns of combat will receive an additional +1 modifier as the song fades from the target's mind. For non-combat, saving throws the target may roll once every 5 or 10 minutes by Dungeon Master discretion. Target will receive an additional +1 modifier for every failed throw as the song fades from its mind. The next one is a recipe for the item. Call of the Siren Quick Notes. Maybe this one will answer that question of yours. The weapon type is a horn, flute, conch, or other similar musical instruments. Okay, so it says 1d20 plus charisma modifier plus proficiency versus target AC. So it is a single target use.
Okay.
All right. Although that would be interesting to have it like an actual cone.
Yeah.
And, like,
which
enemies...
kind of would actually make sense, but... Okay, so I have to ask with BooBoo the Joly here. Why a shovel?
Oh, you don't remember, do you? You guys found a wheelbarrow, remember? It had a shovel in it.
Did they actually take the shovel?
Yeah, he took the shovel.
He
took the shovel and had such a gleeful fucking expression. Like the player had such a gleeful fucking expression on her face, and she was just like, "I'm gonna hit every motherfucker with this goddamn shovel." And I'm like, "Okay then."
I'm surprised you didn't put the slingshot on there.
There is no slingshot.
Yeah.
I looked for the slingshot. There is no slingshot in Hero Forge.
Because that was the bane. Because they actually managed to roll what?
3 natural 20s.
Yeah, like 3. Yeah, they crit 3 times with that thing. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was. It was fucking something. I was not expecting a slingshot that deals 1d4 fucking bludgeoning damage to crit against magically inclined armors that many fucking times.
And of course, they didn't have bagpipes either, so you have to go with a regular, like,
I had to go with a flute. BooBoo never struck me as the guitarist. You know?
No.
Never struck me as a guitarist.
BooBoo actually did play the bagpipes.
Yeah, it was the
But of course,
bagpipes.
they don't.
Yeah.
Hero Forge doesn't have those in here, but
Yeah, so because there's no bagpipes, there's pretty much only like harps, guitars, and flutes, and like a violin. So I decided that another wind instrument will go with the flute.
yeah, it's about as close as you're going to get to it, unfortunately.
I
But
did.
yeah, no, that's pretty good that's pretty good. I gotta say for BooBoo with the Joly.
Thank you. I went with a bit more of a pinkish in terms of the pants and undershirt, but a nice red coat like that kind of fits the clown archetype. I didn't.
Clown.
Yeah,
Clown.
Clown. Yeah.
Tomato,
I
tomato.
didn't know if BooBoo was gonna be the more like comical, pudgy clown, or if BooBoo was gonna be the more athletic one. I ultimately went with the look we're going here because unless you're a sumo wrestler, very rarely are you gonna find adventurers and combatants that are larger in terms of like body. So, yeah.
Well, if I were to make one critique, I know that I think I always pictured at least BooBoo to be fairly short.
I thought that
Not like
too.
dwarf or like halfling short, but definitely, maybe 5'2", 5'3".
I think I made him 5'5".
Okay.
I think I made him 5'5". I could be wrong.
But I mean, no.
A fat friar in the party. Why not?
So
Like we don't have a fat friar though.
Well, you'd have to be like a fat cleric, which would be funny. One who specialized in like standoff attacks, like a cleric bard class.
Maybe. Yeah, I've given some.
Barry Moo.
Yeah, it's me.
Barry Moo.
Don't judge my strawberry milkshakes.
What are you upset with the fat friar quote?
Fuck you! I can hear it through the wall.
Don't blame me. Blame Beers. Beers was all like, "Hey, I can see a fat friar in the party." Don't blame me.
I need to go tell Elvin that I'm going to use his gun to commit murder.
Can you narrow it down a little? I mean, he's got quite a few.
The ones I have. I've got
okay.
the rifle rifle.
We've got two of his rifles and one of his revolvers. The revolver is already finished with the holster, but we need to make the slings for the rifles.
Yeah.
So are those gonna be like back slings or what?
Shoulder sling.
Have you played
Yeah,
Red Dead
okay.
Redemption? Because apparently the Red Dead Redemption was the inspiration for the slings themselves.
Me? No. I just had
No?
inspiration to do them. No.
Oh, okay.
Now, are you gonna do like the sling with the side slit, so you can like reach over, pull it, and then pull it up, or you can do just a straight holster where they have to pull it straight up?
Well, it's just going to be like a strap from one end to the other, so you can just throw it over your shoulder like the World War I guys do.
Okay.
Just over the one shoulder. But yeah, no, it's the same thing. It's like a little holster that you'd have on like the side of your horse where it's got the flap over the top.
Yeah.
I'm doing that one for his musket.
Okay.
And I'm going to tool special things on it because that one's the law. I told him, he's like I want to engrave the law in like old school, like West style lettering, just the law.
Yeah.
But then I'm going to tool it into the leather as well. So, yeah, I don't mean to hijack your shit. I should let you do your thing. I just wanted to say more because I wasn't sure if you could hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you now,
Well,
Mr.
he could
Frickin'
hear me.
Strawberry Milkshake.
He could hear me when I said fuck off, or was it fuck you?
Does it matter?
Mm-hmm.
Nah. Level 7 already. Fuck this bow, man.
Yeah. That's the fury of the cleric.
Oh, I was a
See that
jackass
that
last
would
session.
be an interesting cross, like a cleric, uh, um, cleric bard character,
A
Cleric
clone.
bard.
a cleric bard. Yeah.
All right.
If I went bard, I would talk my way through mostly anything because my charisma is maxed the fuck out.
So remember this, Brennan. Then never let him play a bard in any of our campaigns
I
because
mean,
he'll just be insane.
Why?
I'm not sure I have much of a choice.
Well, it's pretty easy. He says, "Hey, can I play a bard?" You say, "No, no, you cannot."
It'd be like, go up to an encounter and be like, all right, what can you give me for doing this quest? I'm like, I can give you gold. No, I need something better. What? I'll be right back. What? I said I need something better. 2 minutes. I got something better, guys.
Or just walk up to an enemy and say, "Yeah, you don't want to fight us." I think we do. You don't want to fight us. Rolling that 20. Well, shit.
Just walk away. All you have to do is just walk away. And getting in firing distance, archers fire.
Right.
Yeah, no. I was a jackass last week, and I want to apologize
For what?
for being a jackass.
Oh, you mean for letting Roland sit there bleeding out on the ground?
No, I told you I don't like elves.
Oh, he's a half elf.
I know. I'm cool with him. Ironically, I'm playing an elf.
You're playing an elf?
Yeah, because that's what the archers are. You can't fucking change the face features. I want to give them beards.
Oh, ha!
Yeah.
Well, I suppose you could do like a goatee with an elf.
No
but-
facial hair at all.
Oh,
They don't have an option for it. It's stupid.
Yeah, Bless Unleashed. It has it's got this weird thing where the classes that you can pick are kind of locked to species as well.
yeah.
It's also not a
okay.
completed game either.
So you don't play an archer of any race. You have to play an elvish archer.
Yep.
You don't play a barbarian of any race. You play a human barbarian.
Cat.
No, you play a cat.
You play a giant cat.
Ah, a cat barbarian, huh?
Yeah, fucking a cat man. And the thing that kind of
Why?
It's strange
because
for
a cat
me.
man do. That's why.
Well, the thing is, like, for me, the thing that's always kind of a little strange is that whenever you've got the Catman males, they're these big hulking things, and they're very intimidating, and they're very fuck with me and I squish you. But when you play the Catman females, they're skinny, they're luxurious, and they're, for all intents and purposes, they are quote unquote
They're
sexy.
perfect.
They're very feline looking.
They're perfect.
Yeah, they're more human than cat, and I'm just thinking like, interesting. I'm not complaining,
Oh,
but
come on.
interesting.
All the female characters they have to make sexy in some form or fashion. I mean, it's at least sexy to human perception.
I'm gonna see how far I can get with this bow. I already one-shot that big green fucking giant by the arena.
Yeah, because that's
I pulled in my
totally
charge
fucking
shot.
fair.
Hey, I got the bow legit. I'm another character.
I was about to say, that character you're playing right now didn't achieve it fucking fair and square. Fucking handoff from
defense?
daddy.
They don't have level locked loot. That is their fault.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. I
This
mean,
is also true.
he is playing it by law. Yes.
I got it in normal means. Now, I've already been talked to once by a GM. We'll see how fast this goes this time.
So Beers has
Well,
said,
I suppose they probably don't care too much as long as you don't go out just like slaughtering noobs,
I went
Out
out
for
and
a town.
slaughtered the two-headed giant by my goddamn self. Well,
That's a
GM
two-headed
sat by
giant.
and
That's
watched
not
me do it.
that's not a player character. If you start just like ganking new players, I'm pretty sure that they might
It's
have
a
some of
level
the same
18 enemy. and I was level 4.
Yeah.
And I
Jeez.
was taking chunks off of it. So I had to start talking to him like, hey, I did this legit, not cheating. Inspect my gear.
Somebody gave this to me.
Yeah, I gave it to me.
Yeah.
On that note, Beers has stated that a friar would be a cleric/monk. A cleric bard hybrid would be a reverend.
Okay.
Your mom's a reverend.
A cleric monk. So I assume that the monk part would probably be like drunken master, being a friar after all.
Mm.
That would be an interesting one to play though. Yes, as I understood it, the friars, I think, now don't quote me on this, but I
Everyone
think the friars
quote him.
were the ones that actually did the brewing.
They're also the cooks.
No,
No, not playing off that. Like, they do cook a lot.
Friar cook.
Make them like 5'5" and 300 pounds, you know.
Oh man,
Big dude.
Or make
Like
some
some of those really high level martial arts masters, you know, the ones that, you know, they don't really do all the physical practice every day, but they're, you know, because they've got it in some muscle memory.
From Jackie Chan Adventures, the big sumo guy.
Yes, he was. That show was great.
I loved him. I'm like, oh, he's a villain. Okay, I like him better as a not villain.
Yeah, as a good guy, he was better as a good guy. I agree.
He was weaker as a good guy though, which was stupid. I'm like, oh come on. So it's like unlocking that big boss character. You can finally play it. When you fight it, extra shit. When you use it to fight other people, it does nothing. It's like, right. All right, I need to like let you guys do your thing. I'm gonna hang up before I totally like break other things, not just this game.
All right then. Moving on. Apparently, this is.
I would almost be tempted. I would almost be tempted to try to play a cleric bard hybrid though, a reverend, huh? Interesting.
Moving on to the next one. This one's called Scores of Dramatic Flourish.
See, these would be a lot more interesting, in all honesty, if we actually had a bard in the group.
I mean, you're not wrong, but gotta keep in mind that it's not like
really
I
cool
can't.
Concept, no question about that.
It's not like I can't convince Zach to redo his character for the villain campaign. It's not. It's not like we can't change that so that he's a bard in the villain campaign.
Well, we haven't even played the villain campaign in a while, so I mean, you haven't introduced the character yet, so I mean, we should all be good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, yeah, if we did have a bard, that would be really helpful too, because at least then we would have someone with some healing magic.
We do.
I mean, holy crap!
It's just that one of you doesn't use it. The cleric doesn't use his healing magic.
Wait. I'm talking about the villain campaign.
Oh, the villain campaign. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, no. The druid, come on, as a druid, I've got, Roland has the healing magic, obviously. But the in the villain campaign, we have a sorcerer, a barbarian, and a warlock.
Yeah, a warlock. So. I think he also went bard.
Did he? Okay.
I think he went multi-class. Evil campaign. Oh, nope, just warlock.
Okay.
So, moving on. The performance that was asked of you by your college was considered a success by the crowd. However, you thought that your performance was somewhat lacking. You don't know what it is that you are missing, but you know that you would regret it if you do not figure it out. Then you hear a knock on the door of your ready room. Number 1, come to my ready room.
Right.
You weren't expecting any visitors, so you were curious to see
Come
who
now,
it
mon
could be.
capitaine.
Once you opened the door, you discovered that it was a messenger with a package. Cadence of battle. During an ally's attack, you may use a reaction to expend a charge of bardic inspiration to select an ally within 50 feet and add twice of your proficiency bonus to your ally's damage. Interesting.
Ooh.
Chance with a T of defiance.
Yep.
After an enemy's attack, you may use a reaction to expend a charge of bardic inspiration to give an ally who was most recently damaged, your choice if there is more than one during the attack, temporary hit points equal to twice your proficiency bonus.
Okay, not horrible.
My question is this an item or is this an ability?
Stuff that's going to be less useful, but you know.
Well, my question is this an item or an ability? Because it doesn't, like, that's all it says. So I don't know if this is like a ring or a necklace. It says scores, but unless we're talking about like the notes, I have no idea what that means.
Maybe it's a sheet of music.
Yeah, maybe.
Like a book of music, you know, like you have books of wizardry.
Yeah, like a scroll.
Song book.
Yeah, like a scroll that you would unfurl and put onto your piano.
Right.
That gets you. Could be that. Music sheets. There we go. Beers has elaborated.
Well, good to know.
Excellent. That'll do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are a number of homebrew items that Beers has sent my way. And let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, I think. 13 items. And yeah. It's not.
I think that's hilarious. I think that's hilarious how you toyed with giving BooBoo a fro. I mean,
I did.
That actually does kind of work, you know, with the whole, you know, clown wig concept.
It did, and I figured that, you know, the hairstyle that I ended up going with him worked a lot better because, you know, let's be real. In the medieval period, an afro of that size, the afro wig, that would just look fucking weird. Like, it wouldn't necessarily be funny. You have to naturally progress from one extreme to the next and keep on going it. Yeah, I made him 5'6". I made BooBoo 5'6". Probably should have gone a little shorter, but hey, whatever.
A little bit taller than I expected, but yeah, no, that's fine.
One song in a musical sheet is called a score. Yeah, that's what. I didn't know the official like number of songs in something could be called a score. No, sorry, not songs. Like how much of a song being completed could officially be called a score. You know, like
I did know that a score was a part of a component in a song, or at least a piece of songwriting terminology. I was familiar with that, but I didn't know what the exact definition was. So,
yeah, the musically inclined was my old man, and that's about it. My brother dabbled in the guitar for a little bit, and then just stopped it after a while. So, let's see. But yeah, we've been doing this for about 45 minutes, so I think it's actually about time that we discuss the Tales of the Lost Players. I just realized that I forgot to change the episode number. It's not episode 1, it's episode 2. There we go.
The Lost Players.
Indeed. Minimum of a score is 1 music sheet line. Interesting. So, let's begin with Osyrus and BooBoo the Joly. Osyrus was the character of the very first player that I invited to join me in D&D. I saw that she was having like a shit day. Turns out it was a shit week. And at the time, I had just gotten out of a Star Wars RPG because an ex-girlfriend was still playing there, and I didn't want to deal with that. So,
Weren't they the second one that you invited? Because I know the first one was Fiona's player.
No, she was the second one.
Oh, who was the first?
Osyrus's player.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, very first player I invited.
Okay.
No, Fiona was the third. Because technically speaking, Tiberius was the second. Because one of the conditions for Osyrus joining was we needed more than just two people. So I looked over and I saw Tiberius's character and I went, "Hey, want to play D&D?" And he was all like, "Sure." And then I turned back to her and I'm like, "I can keep going."
Yeah, and then you were talking about stealing Fiona's player, and then I think I happened to be in earshot, and I'm like,
"Yep,
you guys are starting a D&D game," and you're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Can I play?"
Indeed.
You're like,
"Sure,
I suppose." Yeah. Well, we had a good 7 people from
it was 7.
work?
It was, well, from work at the time it was 5 or 6. And then because the thing was like Osyrus's player had a roommate at the time. I don't know if they're still living together. They probably are.
I think they are actually.
So, but she asked me, "Hey, my roommate heard about this campaign and wants to join. Would that be okay?" I said yes, but that was a huge mistake. Not because of the fact that the players left, but more to the fact that for someone who had never DM'd before and had a very minimal experience with the actual game, I should have kept it to people I knew, personally. I should have kept it at that, because you're introducing an unknown element.
Right.
And
you weren't necessarily sure how everyone was going to react to everyone.
Mm-hmm. How everyone was going to respond to everybody, if the play styles didn't meld, that would we'd be fucked if the play styles didn't meld, which for the most part didn't actually happen. For the most part, everyone.
I don't think we really got into enough. I don't think we got it. I don't think we had enough sessions to really even start to gel. Yeah. Or to really get to get the feel of the other players, and so it was interesting.
Yeah, and even to this day, I'm still a little pissed, but at the same time, I don't feel like I would be overly vindictive if those two approached me at some point and went, "Hey, can we join back up again?" I don't know why they would, but if they ever did, I'd be like, sure, why not? We meet on Wednesdays at 5. Don't be late.
Yeah.
So the characters themselves, we'll go with the backstory, because I remembered with episode 1, we skipped over the 2 most important parts. What her backstory was for Fiona, and why she left. We actually totally forgot to mention those things. And we can talk about her at a later time. But for now, Osyrus and BooBoo the Joly. The second mistake I made was allowing BooBoo the Joly to even be a clone in the first place. Because for all of the time that I've spent searching, I haven't been able to find the actual book that the clone race is in.
It's not. That's
so yeah.
It's one of the third party. Hey, this is being just like the vampire.
Yeah, exactly. And
don't get me wrong, it's cool that people are trying to get creative and be fun with it, which is
that's what D&D is supposed to be for. Yeah.
Yeah, but being a first time DM.
I definitely should not
something
have.
You can pull up and reference and be like, "Oh, by the way, your character sheet says this, or your character class allows you to do this.
Exactly,
You know,
and that was
because you
the
don't have that reference handy, you just have to rely on the players to tell you, oh yeah, so I have this, 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 and this.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, in the heat of battle, the player's not necessarily going to remember that.
Yeah, and kind of like how we alluded to last Sunday, if you don't have a book for reference, you're literally just on your phone scrolling through tabs when you could just have the book in your hand and just flip to a specific page.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you've been playing D&D for 5 or 6 years and you got 90% of the stats or 90% of the characters memorized, that's one thing. But yeah, if you're just starting out, especially like we were, and if I recall correctly, which I found this rather amusing, honestly, seeing as we were I was the only one that actually brought a player's handbook to the session,
Yep.
and there were 6 of us trying to draft up characters at the time.
Yeah, Session Zero was
Oh,
Session Zero was fun in its own chaotic way. I can tell
It
you that
was.
for a fact.
it was, but yeah,
It definitely took a
would've been
lot
nice-
longer than it should have.
Yeah, well,
Like,
I mean,
if
we
if
were.
we had even like 1 or 2 more players' handbooks, that would have sped up the process like exponentially.
Yes.
But
Yeah, because there was a lot of here. Try this. Oh, can I see the player's handbook? The player's handbook, singular, the one player's handbook that we have. Yeah, sure, go for it.
So the BooBoo, the Joly, and Osyrus, because they were roommates, they basically had the idea that these 2 characters also were roommates, or more specifically, they lived in the same traveling circus as one another. And you remember how last week I said that Fiona inspired an entire culture, basically?
Yes.
BooBoo the Joly and Osyrus inspired the very first, shall we say, story arc for the campaign?
The entire story arc?
The first story arc, yeah. Not the story arc that we ever went on. So did you ever have a moment where it felt like I was pulling stuff out of my ass?
Like half the campaigns.
Yeah. Blame those 2 for that.
Well,
Because here's
you
the
had
thing.
you had the whole thing with the horsemen.
The idea with the Horsemen was going to be late campaign. That was going to be a late campaign. They were legitimately going to stay a mythos until like near end campaign, right?
Yeah.
The original first arc was going to be floating around the fact that Osyrus is an orphan. And as soon as the
Is it what?
He was an orphan. And as soon as the player informed me of that, I'm like, oh, perfect. The original idea for Osyrus was that he came from a family of vampire hunters. Vampire hunting tieflings. Imagine that.
Mm-hmm.
And the vampires themselves got sick and tired of their bullshit. So they wiped them out. And Osyrus's parents, knowing that this was about to happen, but didn't have enough time to do anything about it, sent Osyrus as a baby with the traveling circus. A place where freak shows won't be looked at twice.
Mm-hmm.
So the first story arc was going to be around the fact that there are these strange monsters that are approaching, and they seem to have a very strange effect on Osyrus, or rather Osyrus has a strange effect on them. Osyrus has a strange effect on them, and we would eventually meet Osyrus's mother somewhere along the line. And I forget exactly how I envisioned her to be. I do know that at one point in time I juggled with the idea of his grandmother instead of his actual mother, and the grandmother was going to be a nutcase.
Mm-hmm.
But the original storyline for the first story arc was going to center around this vampire hunting clan of tieflings that Osyrus hails from. And it was going to be this big thing of like rediscovering who he was and why he was abandoned onto the circus. and stuff like that. So, and because the two of them left, I was like, shit.
Well, now I have to find some other way of getting them out of this freaking town into the next one. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, because they weren't around, I couldn't use the circus as a form of early level ups.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't use that because, like, oh, the circus is
As
having
a,
difficulties,
as a
and
swap out.
they've been hired you guys because you're friends with their two workers. You guys can help solve this mystery. I can't do that because, the players aren't there, and it would be disingenuous for me to just, have them ask you in my own voice. I'm like, motherfucker, I'm just going to say they left.
Yeah, the circus decided to leave, and they left with them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at that point, what else can you do at that point, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, that definitely would have been an extremely fun storyline to play out, though.
Mm-hmm. And something that I originally juggled with Osyrus's player's next character, Iona. Well, Iona's a vampire. I just picked up the pieces from the last idea with Osyrus and was all like, "Oh, we'll meet Osyrus's parents, all right." Mm-hmm. Except they're gonna see the vampire instead. And they're gonna be out for their own type of blood.
We're gonna have to choose whether or not to fight them. That would be interesting. Okay.
Yeah, again, I had the story idea, but Osyrus's player eventually had to step down too, not because of like disagreements or anything at the time.
Scheduling conflict.
Yeah, scheduling, and I believe you guys had reached like level 4, level 5 by that. No, like level 4 or something like that.
We were like level 3, I think.
Yeah.
Still, because when we went down into the cave underneath, we were still pretty low level.
Well, regardless, we eventually hit a point where it was legitimately going to be difficult to actually justify Iona's return to the party, especially given her personality. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't really meld all that well. So eventually, I just had to ask her, like, hey, doors open for if you feel like you'll eventually be able to come in and keep coming in regularly, but don't. I'm just letting you know right now. Don't fret with showing up.
Right.
Your character's basically written out at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It was not a fun time. It was not a fun thing to tell her that. It was like, I don't want to do this because you're nice and you're cool.
Well, we were really...
Yeah, even after that, I don't know if you noticed, but I would constantly look at the door to Fantasy Flight hoping that she would show up with that shit-eating grin on her face. I was legitimately hoping that she would keep on showing up, because you and her were the only two at first who really got into the role playing of it, and it made my job so much fucking easier.
Well, let's be honest. Tiberius's player was only around there to smash things. I mean,
he was, yeah,
pretty much why he was there. Mm-hmm. Adam, he did do some role playing, but not very much. And honestly, as a druid, or playing a druid, encountering this vampire for the first time, I really had, as a player, I hit a moral quandary, if you will, because I know that druids find undead a violation of nature. Mm-hmm. So they would have been, he really would have lit her up on fire. It's just because that's what druids do. Undeath is a break from the cycle of life and death and life and death. So yeah, I really had to figure out a way to justify not just like lighting her up, right there. So,
and that's kind of the downside to letting every single player basically pick whatever race and class they want, because at some point in time there's going to be those, it's not an asshole thing to do if you let your other fellow players know, hey, I'm playing a character that really fucking hates goblins because goblins killed my entire family. If you play a goblin, I'm probably going to hate your guts and I'm not going to want to help you. It's not an asshole thing to do to let the players know this. It's really not. And
Right, but you know
when your players unironically select lawful evil or neutral evil characters, like
right, hero
I had to
campaign.
let both Iona and Lark. The starting area is run by a lawful good paladin at max level, and he's also accompanied by a max level wizard, a max level barbarian, a max level pixie, and an unknown element that no one has ever seen.
The
If
claw
he
and
notices,
the darkness.
yeah, if he knows
um,
there's a vampire in his town, and especially an evil aligned vampire, he's going to shish kebab you.
mhm.
Like, I really should have hammered that home a bit more, but at the same time, I was on this. I forget what video it was that I saw, but I had gotten it into my head that I must allow all of my players the most freedom possible. You can do anything you want. I really shouldn't have. I really should have put some limitations on that, because it's like, hey, this is a world where there are such things as, region-locked cultures and people.
Yep. Yep.
Like
and
the fact that Dragonborn really only exist in Sturmwind because they're not from this continent, right?
mhm.
And the tieflings are a very similar thing where they're not exclusively to any one place, because you get tieflings by demons and devils mating with humans. But fact still remains, you're not really going to see them because they're fucking demonic. A lot of people have some bad history with demons for obvious reasons. So the fact that they would also find refuge in Sturmwind because Dragonborn Tiefling makes sense. A traveling circus makes sense that you would have a Tiefling in there because freak show.
Yeah.
But a vampire, I love the idea of the underground cathedral that I made.
I'm sure you would find vampires, but the vast majority of them would probably be
But fuck evil.
feasting on drow elves and setting up a castle like Ravenloft or something like that.
Yeah, and I do like the underground cathedral that I made. I really did enjoy the encounter that I had you guys go for, but I had to bend over backwards to make that work. And I feel like had I not been so lenient at the time, I wouldn't have had to do that. You know?
Yeah. You probably should have gone to the player and said, you know what, you can be an elf, you could be a half elf. I would rather you not play vampire because
Yeah, and it,
well, I mean,
it was a mistake that I learned from. It was a mistake.
Yeah.
You can't expect someone new to know everything that he should or should not do, especially when it comes to something as complicated as D&D. So, I'll take these messages and not messages, teachings to heart.
You could have. I mean, and it's just a reflection of lessons learned.
Mm-hmm.
You could have just told them like, hey, anything that you play, I'm sorry, but I want to have it in either the player's handbook or, one of the printed books that we can get our hands on.
Yeah, even the Valkyrie class is in a printed book, whether or not it's officially signed off by Wizards of the Coast or not. The fact that it's literally got that seal, functions with 5th edition D&D. The fact that it's in there and it's printed and it's there physically, that alone would have made it, that would have made it good enough to.
Yeah.
But the Klon and the vampire, I had to go out of my way to fucking find. I had to tweak things all sorts of which ways, and it didn't really work. That being said, the actual Klon, it was totally doable. if I remember correctly, they just had like Tasha's hideous laughter or something like that as like a cantrip that they could do like once per day or something like that, which makes sense. Clown.
Yeah.
And that was totally doable. The slingshot, totally doable, especially with a more, I shouldn't say gag character, but a character that doesn't take itself seriously.
Yeah.
And it works. It worked for what it was, and it worked for the length of time. But I feel like if those two characters had stayed around for the rest of the campaign, that would have been something. That would have been something else entirely. Obviously, had these two stayed around, the entire story would have been vastly fucking different.
Yeah.
Fiona affected the map. Osyrus and BooBoo would have affected the narrative entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And it is genuinely unfortunate that these two characters never actually got to see more engagements.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Especially because we were still at the learn as you go stage for all intents and purposes.
Oh yeah, that happened for an uncomfortable amount of time, I think.
I think honestly for the first 6 months, because I know that we really were running combat wrong.
Oh, absolutely.
At least for the first 2 months, I think we were running combat wrong. And then I know even with Lark, I honestly don't think that he ever really was playing that character like in combat correctly, because I'm pretty sure that he wasn't adding all the bonuses that he needed to for his archery, because he kept rolling and missing and rolling and missing and rolling.
It is entirely possible, especially considering what we found out later on when it came to like the barbarian rolls and stuff like that. And he should have, because I know that he had at least a +2 to his dex, right? He had at least a +2. He had his proficiency, and I know that he took the archery.
Which give him an additional +2, so he should have been adding like a +6.
A +6 a +6.
And I'm pretty sure that he wasn't.
Yeah.
So with half of those campaigns, anything that he would have rolled above like a 6 would have hit for half of those, and he was like, "Oh, and it missed. Oh, and it missed. Oh, and it missed." And we're just like, "Dude, what are you doing?"
Yeah, I think even the gargoyles only had an AC of like 17 or 18, right? So even at that point, you'd still have like a 60%. Yeah, you only have like a 60% chance to miss. Sorry, like a 60% chance to hit, and you're good.
Yeah.
So, and even more so considering the fact that when you're fighting the gargoyles, there was I think there was a grand total of 8 or 10 total allies, like players and NPCs going up against these gargoyles.
Oh, we had a good.
I know there were at least 3 dwarves with you. I do know that. So I think it was 8 different people.
Well, I know that Tiberius took on one of the gargoyles and just about took it out by himself.
Because of the magic axe.
Yeah.
Which I did find out wouldn't have actually worked. Because gargoyles only take damage from magical adamantine weapons.
Oh.
Well, they take half damage to everything else. But they only take damage. If you're hitting them with a melee strike, it has to be adamantine. Otherwise, doesn't fucking work.
Okay.
I found that out later, and I'm like, I am glad I didn't know this.
Yeah,
because that would have been bullshit enough.
Otherwise,
it wouldn't have been a TPK, but it would have been close enough to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know that. I think that was the first time that Roland went down. If I recall correctly.
It was.
Yeah.
Trying to rescue a vampire.
Yeah.
How ironic.
Know, right? We didn't know we were rescuing a vampire at the time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Going back to Osyrus and BooBoo, the characters themselves were also the main reason why Fiona and Roland were joined at the particular place they were. So the idea that a bond would have formed between those 4 characters specifically would have been an interesting one, especially considering that, barring the fact that Fiona's player was first time noob, like full on second day Never picked up a dice before in her life like this. Barring that, it would have been a very entertaining thing to watch. As you got two literal clowns being like doing their thing with a 19-year-old like warrior and a 29-year-old half-elf who's seen. I've seen some things, man. It would have been entertaining to watch.
Yes and no, because I mean, I think I did. I believe it was at that point in time that I came to the determination that he knew about the birds and the bees, but he didn't know about the. How can I phrase this? The variations that happen in some of more civilized places, if you will. And seeing as that kind of was the relationship between BooBoo and Osyrus.
Oh no, they were just brothers basically.
Were they?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they were just brothers. They were as far as I'm aware, there was no like romance between them.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So, I could have. Okay. No, you're probably right but I could have sworn that they might have mentioned something along those lines. Anyway, but I'm not. Yeah, that's neither here nor there. So, but. No, I'm pretty sure that Roland would have been the adult of the crowd, trying to like, okay, guys, it's let's be serious here now.
Meanwhile, the fucking clown is all like, "Serious is a smell, right?"
Yeah, basically. No, actually, I think it's a star in the sky, right?
Oh yeah. Let's see. I still think it would have been really entertaining to watch. I think that I think BooBoo would be. Oh, how would I? I think BooBoo would be very much life of the. BooBoo would be very life of the party. BooBoo would make. Oh, I found a rock. It is the best rock ever.
Yeah.
You can't tell me she didn't play him like that.
Oh, definitely, and
like they found you guys found a wheelbarrow with shovels, and BooBoo wheeled that fucking barrel out with a shit-eating grin, and I was like, I'm gonna fucking carry so many bodies with this shit.
So, out of curiosity, if you would have allowed BooBoo to actually use that shovel as a weapon.
Yeah.
What kind of what would you have? How would you roll that damage? I mean, obviously, it would have to be just strength based, right? Because
it would be strength. Yeah, I believe that it would be classified under improvised weapon, so no proficiency bonus would have been added at the time. But I think a weapon like that, with the knowledge that I do have now. I struggled to put it between a D4 and a D6. I struggled to put it between them.
I would almost say that you could actually give the player the option of using it as a bludgeoning object or using it as an edged weapon.
Oh, well. I mean, it's entirely possible. I mean, you can look throughout history and you can find like the Shovel Knight, where there are monks out there that have weapons and staffs that are very similar to shovels. They're basically fucking spades, and they could have a sharp edge to them. But this was like a legit shoveling instrument with like shoveling in mind. So, like I said, I think with the knowledge I do have now, I think I might have put it at like a D4 in terms of bludgeoning damage, but you could two-hand wield it for a D6.
Make it a
versatile
variable,
weapon.
I think they call it. Versatile, that's it, yep.
I could definitely do that. And I don't think I would give it reach, but at the same time, like, the idea of making it reach because of how a shovel could perform, I don't think I'd give it reach, but it's a possibility.
Right. It could have.
It still would have been fucking funny as hell.
Yes, it would have.
Like, we have these brave band of heroes. Draw your weapons, my new comrades, and let us face the monsters that are at our door. The clown's got a shovel.
Yeah, clang. Just like walk up. Just like walk up behind someone and hit him in the back of the head. Clang. Yeah, that would have been.
I can't think of a digging pun.
It does seem more like a dwarf weapon, doesn't it?
I was thinking like a 6 foot under joke.
Dwarf and I'm digging a hole.
No, I was thinking like a 6 foot under or like, grave robber joke, but I don't know. I couldn't think of one off the top of my head. So the idea that the clown is like beat someone with the back of the shovel, is about to say a witty joke and went, shit, I had something for this. Don't move. I'll think of something when I get back.
Right. Oh, it just occurred to me. Going with the whole clone race thing, I almost wonder if you should have given the character like red hair, like straight up, not like ginger red hair, but like straight up, like Ronald McDonald red.
Well, I thought about that, but the thing is, like, because I Googled the clone again before designing this character, I noticed that a lot of the clones in the artwork didn't actually have extravagant hair. And then I also looked up Renaissance or medieval jesters, and they didn't have colored hair either. It was pretty much just like lots of browns and blacks and stuff.
Oh,
and
okay.
the idea kind of struck me. I was like, oh yeah, the idea of colored hair didn't even really happen back then. Like,
okay,
like Osyrus has got colored hair because he's a tiefling, but a clone like this, if we're going by like a race mixed in with the actual profession, probably wouldn't have that. Like, yeah, you could probably have like nail polish and stuff like that. That would work. It's like this, basically just a liquid, but hair product like that didn't really exist. Didn't really need to.
Well, I mean. Yeah, but I suppose, if you really, really, really wanted it, though, I suppose you would probably more have raised eyebrows if it was not traditional than you would humor.
Mm-hmm.
You could use like cloth dyes in order to change the hue of your hair. I know for a fact that they had plenty of products at that point in time to make your hair darker.
Mm-hmm.
Even if only on a temporary basis.
I've said this a couple times before when it comes to like certain mentalities or certain like modern day sensibilities, and they want to like add it into their campaigns. I've had similar ideas to this. They wouldn't exist in this setting because you could literally just go to a wizard and pay that wizard X amount of gold to cast the wish spell on you and make whatever you want happen. So if you wanted to have the colored hair thing, you very well could have. I would just say, yeah.
Well, I don't think
you just need to have know a wizard. You would just need to know a wizard with the wish spell. That's it.
A wish spell would be massive overkill.
Well, maybe, yeah, but I don't know enough. I never actually played wizard, so I don't know the wizard spell that could do that other than like maybe even prestidigitation is like temporary, isn't it?
Let me.
Yeah, because my books are in the other room. Yeah, but regardless,
yeah, you make.
Yeah, but regardless, the whole the colored hair thing, I genuinely was considering it, but when I noticed that a lot of historical clowns didn't actually have bright hair, I was like, okay, sure, I'll just go with a nice I don't know, a nice brown, a nice light brown. Let's do that.
They did, yeah, and they did rely more on their clothes to, elicit different response. Like that's where the whole Harlequin pattern came from.
Yeah, exactly.
So prestidigitation, you could change the color of something for 1 hour.
Yep.
Let me take a look at for thaumaturgy.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know for a fact that either I think Osyrus took thaumaturgy.
Yeah.
Well, it says you can alter the appearance of your eyes for 1 minute. I imagine that you probably could DM that to say, well, you could also use that to change your hair color.
Yeah. But still, like we're still looking at the evidence that they last for like X amount of time, and a more permanent solution to that would be like cast the wish spell. And if we're talking like a model that would be made, I would paint it in such a way where like this is what your character looks like on the regular, where there is no magic involved. Or in Omen's case, this is what your character looks like, and here are wings because they look fucking awesome.
Well, yeah, because that's what he is.
Yeah, he's got the wings. And, but yeah. But real quick, I don't know if we're at that point in the actual screen share, but what did you think of the overall costumes for Osyrus and BooBoo? Because I know you said you liked the color schemes of Osyrus, and I think you said that you liked the color.
With Osyrus, I mean, it worked. It worked. It wasn't bad. When I pictured them, I pictured it more red, black, and with like gold trim.
Yeah.
Personally, as far as like the clothing color scheme, you know, something a little more along the lines of a ringmaster.
Yeah.
You know, because that or even just a regular like almost gypsy look to them, which I mean, you did in fact achieve that gypsy look. But yeah, like I said, I did picture them in like reds and blacks and golds. But no, the color scheme they came out just fine. Actually, I think the player did actually say that Osyrus had like red skin and black hair. I think
red skin and black hair. Okay, this was like a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
it was like a year and a half ago. Yeah, more than at this point. So like smaller details like that skipped my mind, and I was thinking about the color scheme earlier today, where I realized I don't actually remember the skin color for Osyrus. Like, we all know that tieflings can have a wide variety of different demonic skin.
Yes.
But most of the time it's usually red, like a nice red or like a
or
purple
red or purple or orangish.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I just kind of went with the basic, a nice red-ish color and everything like that, and
there's nothing wrong with the color that you chose. That's for sure. You know, it was a good color for him. Yeah.
I picked the hat because, quite fucking frankly, I genuinely picture Osyrus at some point in time finding a hat and going, "This is mine now."
Yep.
This is mine.
See this hat? My hat.
It's my hat now, ladies.
Yeah. I do know that, like, as far as the character dynamics go, they did make a point. Ooh, excuse me.
That was a strong one.
That
was a multiple one.
Anyway. Yeah. Anyhow, the players did make a point to call attention to the fact that Osyrus did feel very protective of BooBoo.
Yes, that is because in the backstory, BooBoo was one of the only ones that looked at Osyrus as in, "Hey, how's it going?" Whereas everyone else kind of looked at him with more like frightful eyes, which does make sense in the terms of like, "Demon, hi." But yeah.
So I'm sorry. The image is now in the process of putting elemental output on the different instruments.
Yeah.
And it just occurred to me, hey, that's funny. In D&D, you can literally have an electric guitar. It deals electric damage. Ooh, shocking.
Such an electrical rift. Let the sparks fly.
Right.
But yeah,
we're gonna turn this up to 11 and crit.
Right. So yeah, so Osyrus and BooBoo were joined at the hip basically, and I get the feeling that pretty much every story beat that we came across, they would have handled it as a duo.
Absolutely, and, no question about it.
We do have one session more with these two characters than we did with Fiona, so we've got a little bit more in terms of like how they would respond to things.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the most important question for like what would these characters do for X, Y, or Z would be how do you think they would respond to that Drider basically going full yandere on Tiberius?
Okay, that I had to be just like reflecting on that whole incident. Uh, that kind of blew my. I mean, I as a DM, I thought you handled that very well because, but yeah, no, I mean, as a player, I'm like, oh crap, so this is how we die, right? Because we can't outrun this damn thing, right? Uh, we managed to the barbarian of all characters managed to talk our way out of. Okay, so let's just to give a little history and backstory on this whole incident. Um, my druid, the barbarian, and was it the monk,
Yes.
the dwarf monk?
Yep.
Yeah. So we had encountered the scouting party for a goblin invading army.
Mm-hmm.
And we took out like the head scouting party, but we made enough noise that it alerted some of the other goblin scouting parties, and so we decided that this is a few too many for us to take on. So we bolted out of there, and on our way out, we catch the eye of a Drider, which is for those who don't know, is a half spider, half woman, like centaur style, if you will. Basically, a woman with a woman's torso attached onto the abdomen of a spider, and they're about 9 feet tall and weigh about as much as a horse. And this thing had full on chainmail and full on weapons and probably a massive amount of spellcasting ability. And we were second level at the time, if I recall.
You were.
So we kind of went like, oh shit, we're yeah. So, and then, but she didn't attack us right away. At least not out of hand. But we were in this tunnel back to the back to the ruined fortress that we had come from originally. And yeah, she kind of cornered us in this tunnel, and no one is speaking any language that, well, truthfully, she did speak Elvish, which my character does, and so does the barbarian, because the barbarian was a half elf.
Mm-hmm. We'll get to
but
him,
apparently none of the
next week, actually.
What?
I think we'll get to Tiberius next week, actually.
Oh, yes. Yeah. But but apparently none of the we were trying to talk with her, but none of us were trying Elvish for some reason, even though they were, she did have an Elvish look to her.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly Tiberius starts talking Abyssal. So and there's a whole backstory that's involved with that, and she basically falls down on her knees, kind of worshiping him, and he's like, and we're all like, what? And he basically manages to talk her down and tell her to leave us alone. She goes, yes, my master. Oh man,
that and was, add a little bit more stereotypical yandere fucking bullshit from anime, and she also gifts him a pendant. A pendant with 4 skulls in the center.
Is that where the other one? It's okay. I had forgotten where he had gotten that.
Yep, he got it from
I know
her.
that. Oh, that's right. I know that that Roland has one of the pendants.
Mm-hmm.
Did Kalu get the other one?
No.
We currently have 2.
You only have one.
We only have one. Oh, okay.
You only have one.
Okay. Because I know that Tiberius got his hands on one.
Yep.
Roland got his, I think, when we were searching for Arfelt, wasn't it?
You got yours after meeting Harold and the horseman after you lost your eye.
That's right. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But
So, yeah.
So
Yeah,
how do you,
so at one
how do you
point in
think
time,
Osyrus
we
and
had
yeah? So how do you think Osyrus and BooBoo would respond to that happening?
to the
To the exchange between the half-elf barbarian and a drider.
well, I don't think we would have gotten to that point because I'm pretty sure that one of them would have launched an attack at it.
Maybe, and I really don't think y'all would have survived had you done that.
Oh no, we wouldn't have because that was a CR9.
I think it was something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the Dreader was like a challenge rating 9, and we were all at level. Well, in all honesty, though, if we would have had 5 people, I think we might have tried taking on that Goblin army, and not necessarily run away.
Well,
but seeing as
there wasn't actually an army per se, because a little bit of DM knowledge that like the actual forces were literally just spurts of like 4 to 8 goblins just waiting at those campfires. For what reason there really wasn't one, because it was literally just intended for you guys to know that this is down here. There are a bunch of goblins. Go get help, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the intent. I have learned my lesson since. But,
well, when you see a group of goblins who are hereditary enemies of surface dwellers, essentially, with a militaristic looking camp, the first thing that you think of is, oh gosh, look, we have an invading army on their doorstep here. Especially since there was one camp here and there's another one, another like 200 feet down the mouth of the cave, and then another one, even further beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the first thing that leapt into our minds as players was, oh crap, this is an invading army. So yes, we did decide to go and run and inform the town, which of course proved to be, I wouldn't say useless, but a little bit fruitless, because
it was more to the fact that so many
at the time.
It was more to the fact that there were still so many shifts in who was actually showing up and who was leaving.
Yeah.
Honestly, if we had kept with the 6 or 7 that we started with and kept on going from there, it would have been a lot less confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously.
Well,
also, I just noticed this on my stream. I don't know if you noticed. I decided to give Osyrus 1 blue and 1 green eye. What do you think about that?
I did notice that, and I think that would be great, because that would be an excellent sorcerer's mark.
Excellent. I just noticed it, and I realized, oh, I forgot about that. Wanted to know how you felt about that. But yeah, the again, because of the fact that these 2 were pretty much gone, but we still had to worry about getting Osyrus's players' new character back or introduced. There was a lot of busy work that needed to be done, and it got confusing, it got convoluted, and it's all kind of neither here nor there. But let's keep going with this. Do you think that with the joking aside that one of them might have attacked the Drider, do you think BooBoo would have put his bagpipes on, walked up to the sleeping goblins, leaned right next to one of them, and went, free? just start playing the bagpipes right next to a sleeping goblin?
Well, we were trying to sneak up on them.
This is true, but the reason I ask is because I get the feeling that with the exception of like obvious story-heavy moments, like cinematic moments, I get the feeling that those 2 characters, especially BooBoo, would have been more inclined for literally being the comic reliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to sleeping goblins, I've got some bagpipes over here. They're not going to blow themselves, so I'll be over here real quick.
Yeah, I could see them doing a lot of
Hijinks.
well, alternative solutions, if you will,
That's a kind way of putting it.
because well, I could see like because like they would definitely have tried to work out a number of 1-2 punches that work very well with a between a bard and a sorcerer. That's for sure.
I think they were already working on that with the first 2 sessions. Actually,
oh yes,
I think they were already like. I think.
But I could see what I could definitely see. BooBoo firing up those bagpipes, and then Osyrus using thaumaturgy to make it sound like there's a whole freaking army back here about to march on them.
Yeah,
you know that the sound would have echoed up and down the hallway.
No, an army of bagpipes would fill up the entire fucking continent. Like fucking hell.
Yeah.
Like I could totally.
No, that would have been all kinds. It would scare the crap out of the goblins. That's for sure.
I was reminded of the moment where there was the failed stealth check, and so the goblin de Grisniak rushes into the gnoll infested area, shrieking and banging his sword against the wall and actually terrifying most of the gnolls. I can imagine BooBoo doing something similar to that quite often, actually.
Oh yes.
Like using those bagpipes to the fullest extent.
Well, BooBoo would have been excellent for like making distractions.
I think it's difficult to say what the player would have wanted because, like I said, I've never seen her before in my fucking life. I never saw her once before in my life, so like it's difficult to say how she would react. But the character, absolutely 100%, he would totally be down for distractions, intimidation. He would totally be down for all sorts of mischief. I can totally see that 100%.
Oh yes. And then here I'm going to sit here, play the bagpipes, and distract you guys while Osyrus sneaks up and fireball. Boom.
Oh my gosh! Can you imagine what Osyrus would have done when he got fireball? Can you just imagine the bullshit? Oh my stars!
Well, I think that's a you get that at 5th level, if I recall correctly.
It's either
sorcerer.
Yeah, because it's a third level spell.
So you get that at 5th level. Yeah. Yep. So it would have been a while, but it definitely would have been interesting.
Absolutely. Moving right along. I don't think. Right. Again, we're kind of skipping over the teleportation of Slim Alabast because it was. In reality, I genuinely should have just went, yep, Slim gets, he gets bored, goes back to his family, continues his monk traditions. Here we got a new character.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely should have done that because the whole teleporting thing was, I mean, it wasn't the only thing that accomplished, but mostly because of the fact of, like, where you guys went as a result for the campaign. You just never, by circumstances, you guys never saw other versions of that teleporting style of magic. You just haven't seen it yet.
Right.
Pretty much since the one fucking time it was used, you never saw it again. And I'm just kind of thinking about it, like going, yeah, I just made it way too overcomplicated. I could have just said, yes, sure, Adam, you can just change your character. Go for it.
Mm-hmm.
I should have just done that, but,
Yeah, live and learn, right? Live and learn.
Pretty much.
Well, as I understand it, like teleportation circles, they can teleport between each other, and I believe that the teleportation spell, I think that is a wizard spell, but it's a much higher level wizard spell. You can teleport, but like your landing site, if I recall correctly, it actually has to be a teleportation circle, right? So it has to be set up.
Like I said before, I haven't played a wizard yet, so I just don't know.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible, but
I mean, so it makes sense to have a bunch of teleportation like circle sites, which, like for example, what you had with in the evil campaign outside of Captain's Port.
Yep.
You know, that made quite a bit of sense.
The Captain's Port teleportation circle, the teleporting pool in the tower.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I like the
we'll
I like the teleporting pool in the tower a lot better though, because that's you don't necessarily need to have a landing site. That's a little OP, but
it is also I went out of my way to make that sound very mystical and like, where the fuck did this come from?
Yeah, no, that was really cool.
So what do you think, moving onward, how do you think that, because we know how Iona handled the meeting of de Grisniak, stealing his purse and then falling for his Jack-in-the-Box trap. But what do you think Osyrus and BooBoo, how do you think they would have responded, like either individually or as a pair? How do you think they would have responded to the Golden Goblin Goods merchant?
I think they would have. They probably would have done their best to play some jokes on him. I think they would have really enjoyed having seeing what pranks they could pull on him.
Do you think they would have done that for most of the NPCs they encountered, or do you think that would have been like more so just with de Grisniak?
I think de Grisniak is a little more kind of invites that sort of thing a little bit more, just because he's a little more snarky, which gives a player the impression that, hey, this is something that he would not necessarily flip his lid over, as opposed to say the wizard in Albright, sorry, who probably would not take very very kindly to people playing practical jokes on him.
Oh so. Yeah, he would not. He definitely would not have.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you catch him on a good day, maybe, but the fact that this dude is a level 20 wizard, he has survived the most bullshit you could possibly imagine for a class. Mm-hmm. He's not putting up with yours.
Right. So,
yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm and I bet even with Tiberius, with Tiberius's nature, who likes giving people shit, not because he likes playing practical jokes, but because he likes getting bad reactions out of people.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure that like the three of them probably would have gotten into quite a bit of mischief.
I can see that. I didn't actually think about that, but you're right. Had those three characters been able to interact with each other a bit more, they probably legitimately would have had a lot of fun in terms of like messing with people and like doing stuff that they obviously shouldn't do, but doing it anyway. Mm-hmm. I feel like the three of them would have put a considerable amount of stress on Valkyria, specifically regarding her daughter.
Oh yes. Oh yeah. No, that would have been epic.
Thinking about that, just like, oh my gosh, what the hell would those three have fucking done with her?
Yeah.
Moving along the storyline, because I remember you wanted to go to bed at 9 last week, so let's move this along.
I appreciate that.
We'll try to stick with the more, I guess. I think we'll stick to the whole the same style that we did last week, where I'll just go along the heavy hitting moments of the campaign, and we'll try to figure out
the more prominent NPCs that we've come across.
Yeah. So obviously the introduction to Gorn's hand and the murdering, raping goblin horde. How the hell do you think that those two would have responded to them? Because obviously,
probably the same way that the rest of us did.
Yeah, because the reason why I think this one would have been very unique for those two is because they've been jokesters the entire time. They've been a part of a literal traveling circus their entire lives. So the idea that, all of a sudden, here's an event that's happening right in front of him. Oh, like the idea that these two very jovial and joking characters would turn serious. Like, that's what I want to know, like, specifically. Do you think, what would their serious reactions be in seeing stuff like that? Like, what do you think they would be with, like, when they are serious?
I think it would be almost like a night and day comparison. Honestly, I'm pretty sure that they would have not found it at all amusing, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And then being from a background where you are kind of on your own, and when you are on your own and not behind the walls of a city and safe, or even behind the fences of a farm, and at least relatively safe from like wild animals and stuff, horrific things happening to large groups of people would have hit quite close to home, at least in my opinion. So they probably would have exploded kind of like the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
I know that. Osyrus with the sorcerer does get access to some really fun spells early in the in level one and level 2 spells, because I think we were at least level 4 at the time.
You were level 3 at the time of the Goblin Horde and Gorn's Hand being introduced.
So that definitely would have meant that she would have had Osyrus would have had access to both Magic Missile and Scorching Ray.
Yep.
So
and the sorcery points would have also been unlocked at that point. You would have,
yes.
The character would have had like 3 spells, sorcery points.
Yep, which would have and once you unlock the sorcery points and the different things that you can do with the meta magic, that does make things quite a bit more interesting. And I'm fairly certain that we would have really burned through, if you forgive the pun, burned through those guys pretty quick. See, with Scorching Ray and Magic Missile, they're both targeted spells.
Yep.
And so you can sit there and pick off bad guys, even when they are in close proximity to someone that you don't want to hit. They are precision spells. The Druid, unfortunately, doesn't get a whole lot of precision spells. So, which is why Roland was forced to take the particular set of actions that he did. Yeah, that would have. I think
it would have been
the dynamic there.
Yeah, the dynamic would have shifted so quickly and so harshly, really, that I think that even if the two characters went back to being jovial, after so and so amount of time, the fact that the other party members would have seen, oh shit, this is what happens when the clowns turn serious.
Oh God. And then I could just imagine us eventually, like as the group, when something happens, send in the clowns.
So
I'm sure that
Beers has piped up a bit.
If I may,
yeah,
I think the casting of Tasha's hideous laughter would really have changed the whole dynamic of that, because the how that whole situation ended with that goblin captain taking that one one
dwarf,
the one woman hostage. Yes, definitely. That would have casting Tasha's hideous laughter on him would have made him drop her, and then we could have dropped him, and then we would have been done.
So, and Beers has piped up saying conical of residual magic, or conical. I don't quite know what that means, but it was talking earlier when we were discussing like target magics and sorcery points, so it might have something to do with that.
Conicle of Residual Magic, is that in one of the handbooks, or is that
I'm afraid I do
another
not know.
homebrew?
I'm afraid I don't know.
Okay.
Let me just look this, actually. It is in the homebrew Conicle of Residual Magic. Interesting.
Do tell. Share with the rest of the class.
Every kind of magic leaves a trace. That was what your old mentor said to you long ago, as she passed down her conicle to you, just as her mentor did to her. And this will help you understand what I mean. As you don the conicle on top of your head and start to see the flow of magic, wild magic, between the two of you, then you see her cast her magic. You start to see parts of her magic being absorbed by you, more accurately, the conicle that you are now wearing. Now use it, she said, and with a little smirk, you know exactly what to do. It basically acts as a storage for magics around you. This old conicle was enchanted long ago to absorb leftover magic to be used at a later date. All spells where a spell slot has been expended that has been cast either cast or taken place within 60 feet of the item will increase the conical point counter equal to the spell level being cast.
Ooh.
Spells cast by the player will be countered at the end of the turn.
Countered or counted?
Counted. Yeah, spells cast by the player will be counted at the end of the turn. The conical point's max capacity is in proportion to the player's sorcerer level. For a rainy day, you know from first hand that saving anything can mean the difference to having a good day or a bad one. As a bonus action, you may spend a sorcery point up to 25 conical points to deal. You may spend a sorcery point to use up to 25 conical points to deal as extra damage on your next spell. Yeah, the grammar's a little weird, but at the same time, I think I get what it's meaning, where you can use sorcery points in conjunction with this conicle to deal extra damage with your spells, which is quite useful, actually.
That's I'll be honest, that's a little bit OP. I mean, don't get me wrong, that you're right, that would be really, really handy, but just say, hey, I'm going to cast Fireball, and then I'm going to spend a sorcery point to activate the conical and deal an extra like 10 or 11 damage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so that's suddenly what 8d6 plus 10 at fifth level or whatever, or 10th level, because I think you max out, and then it automatically renews another three points because of your casting of Fireball.
Mm-hmm.
And if you even the question is that per hit? Because that's when things get really nasty, because then you say, hey, I'm going to cast Magic Missile at level 6, right? So now you have 8 Magic Missiles that hit, and then they each do an additional 12 damage per Magic Missile.
Oh, that's actually a good question. That's a good question.
Yeah, so you need to take this kind of thing into account. Like, for example, this is a nasty little trick that I have set up for my I think is it Sun Soul Sorcerer? No, Divine Soul Sorcerer in in Zach's group, because I did take a dip into Magic Initiate, and I did take Hex.
Mm-hmm.
So when you Hex deals an additional 1d6 damage per hit when the creature is hexed, right? So as a sorcerer, you cast Hex on something, and then you cast Magic Missile.
Oh.
Right? And then suddenly you're dealing not only 1d4 times 8, because it's at 6th level, right? 1d4 times 8, but you're also dealing, um, sorry, 8d4s, but you're also doing 8d6 damage as well, and that's more than a fireball at that point. So yeah, the question you do have to ask is whether that's per hit or that's in total.
Beers says it is a single hit.
Okay. Still,
But
though,
but I can totally see where you're coming from in the sense that like even if it's cast from you, you're still using. Let's just go to the extreme. Let's say you use a 9th level spell with this thing. Mm-hmm. You cast it, use a sorcery point, and all of a sudden you're doing, 9th level spell slot means you're X amount of level, like what, 15?
20th. No, 9th level spells max, so you're at least a level
17,
19?
Right?
19.
Yeah.
19, I think.
But, well, regardless, you're still doing like 18, 19 damage minimum on top of that 9th level spell. And then you're also getting 19 points back. You're also getting 9 points into the conical, to which you can use it again later.
Right.
But no, I can totally see this being a really good thing, just with a little bit of tuning.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, it would be seriously overpowered. That's for sure.
When it comes to the homebrew weapons that I've made or homebrew items, for the most part, I don't even think you've stumbled upon them. No, you have the Ring of the Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Ring of the Wild literally just increases your HP and your the duration. The duration that you can wild shape.
I like the Ring of the Wild. That is extremely handy.
The Ring of the Wild increases a druid's HP while in wild beast form by 2 per druid level, and it also increases the duration of the wild beast form by did I say 2 hours or 3 hours?
2 hours.
For 2 hours. And I felt it's a fair enough. It's an item that is very useful, but it's not so useful and so, oh my gosh, I need this, that you won't see a druid without it. Mm-hmm. This one is meant for low magic systems. Okay. I haven't really used low magic systems yet, so I'm afraid I can't really, pass judgment on that at this point. We've pretty much only been using D&D 5th edition for at least my experience, and that one's pretty fucking high in terms of magic systems. Moving along, the serious nature of these two, all of a sudden being serious and then coming back down to being jovial at some later point in time. Do you think they would have trusted Arfel, the blind druid, all that much? Or do you think that they would have taken full advantage of the fact that he can't fucking see?
I think, at least when we met him, Arfel's condition. I know that Roland is a fairly serious type. I mean, he does have a bit of a sense of humor, but he's a fairly serious character. Yeah, you may have noticed.
I may have noticed.
Yes, but I think making fun of someone that has literally had their eyes ripped out of their skull would be in a little bit of bad taste. And I think it would have been in bad taste enough that they probably would have noticed it. And would have been like, you know what? No, we're not going to make fun of him for this.
I can see that.
So, yeah, no, I don't. I don't know if they would have trusted him right off the bat. I mean, in all honesty, he did save us from, from some. Were those?
Yeah.
No, those weren't owlbears.
It was a bugbear.
Bugbears, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he probably, seeing as he did say it was from some bugbears, that probably would have lent to his credibility and trustworthiness right off the top of the bat. But yeah, and then plus I think they might have actually known. Well, no, that's right, because they didn't. BooBoo was an acrobat and not part of the College of Lore.
Yep.
So actually, we never even got to the point.
Didn't even get to that point yet.
Right.
So moving along from there, just trying to keep things a bit speedy for you.
Yeah.
The city of Stormwind is a very, I hesitate to say serious, but it's the type of like gun ho, almost literally, in the sense that you want to have a fight, let's fucking fight. Loser buys drinks. And
Something like Dublin.
maybe. But obviously, the idea of a Goliath bartender, a Drider fucking waitress, and
See,
you know,
I have to
and
be
also
honest,
being
I
and also
haven't read a little bit
doubling,
about the-
also doubling as a brothel. How do you think that those two would have, responded to that setting, the Gorgon's Fang?
I think I'd be willing to bet that they probably would have tried to put on a performance.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Most
fairly
definitely.
certain- yeah, they definitely would have tried to put on a performance. I think that Osyrus would have definitely been impressed by the barkeep. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Probably, I think that would have definitely been an interesting dynamic for the two of them, especially with Osyrus finally being in an environment that
Looks very much like him.
that he doesn't necessarily stand out as a freak.
Yeah.
That suddenly he's in a place where he's kind of the norm. So I think it definitely would have been a revelatory experience for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then don't forget, we also needed to talk about how they would have dealt with Lark. But that's
This is true. At some
point in time.
We'll get
I
to
know
the
that-
players. We'll get to the players later. I think I'll use like X amount of NPCs like within the last 15 minutes. Quick synopsis of what these characters would have handled, how these characters would have handled those characters, those NPCs, and the player characters. But I feel like Osyrus would have felt very much at home. I feel like the character, more so than the actual player, would have taken it really, really strangely. As in, he would not know what to do with himself, where he's almost expecting people to look at him, and they don't. Where it would, like, all of a sudden, instead of people asking those around him, "Oh, you're hanging with that?" All of a sudden, if the question would be raised, the people would be asking him, "Oh, you're hanging with them?"
Right.
All of a sudden being on that other side.
Right.
And I feel like Osyrus would have... I don't know how sexual the player would have made Osyrus. I don't think she would have made him all that sexual at all. Knowing the player as I do, I don't think that Osyrus would have been all that, hey, baby.
Interested in availing themselves of the services of the brothel.
Yeah, I feel like...
Yeah.
Though I do feel like Osyrus would have had a unique appreciation for Valkyria. I genuinely feel like he would have a very unique appreciation for her, being a sorcerer herself and, being this dragonborn who made a name for herself in a city that, for all intents and purposes, is being surrounded by...
hostile forces.
Maybe not hostile forces, but definitely people that would look twice at her.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like BooBoo would just try to make her laugh. I feel like that's just BooBoo's character for the most part.
Yeah.
I feel like
Definitely
he would go.
Valkyria laugh,
Yeah, I feel like he would go out of his way to make the jousting tournament like, all right, people, while the knights are trying to get their horses not so spooked, let's put on a show.
Right. Well, and I also know that they definitely would have enjoyed Valkyria's daughter.
Oh,
They would have gotten
undoubtedly.
all kinds of mischief. There's no doubt about that. Yeah.
All kinds of mischief. BooBoo would try to teach the kids how to play the goddamn bagpipes. Try to picture that.
Yeah, no, I could easily picture that.
You know, like, see, this is a shovel. You can dig with it, but you can also pong hit people with it.
Right.
Man, I could just like. That actually raises a question. How do you think that those two would have responded to Valkyria slapping her daughter? Because I remember like Roland being very much all for it. You know, like discipline your young. Yes, do that. Animals do that all the time. But how do you think those two would have responded to that? Osyrus being an orphan and BooBoo being more like slapstick is slapstick, but oh. And even then, I don't even know if BooBoo would have thought about that way. So, how do you think the two of them would have handled would have thought about that?
It really does depend on. Well, it depends on a lot of things. You know, I mean, how. Well, with Roland, he didn't mind it too much because, you know, his parents were not necessarily like that, but during his druidic training, at times.
Your master will whack you with a stick.
Oh yeah, Shaltha would definitely have resorted to, you know, a little bit of physical discipline because, you know, I'm fairly certain that doing anything like wild shaping cannot be all that comfortable.
At least not the first couple.
You know,
at least not the first couple times.
Right. And you know, so I mean, he's been taught to deal with pain. You know, I mean, pain is a part of existence. You know, so and you know, so that's his perspective. But I mean, it's so. But you're looking at a combination of you need to take into account a combination of both the characters themselves and also the players that play the characters because you know, if if a character would most likely, you know, agree with you know, physical discipline, the player may not necessarily. So, so that really does depend. You know, I could definitely
foresee,
you know, having grown up in a or being raised by a not an itinerant but a roving, you know, troop. You know, I'm fairly certain that some of those acrobatic skills would require some physical discipline, maybe not necessarily imposed from outside, but you know, but I'm fairly certain that you know, you don't learn tumbling without taking a few falls. You don't learn tumbling without taking a lot of falls, and I know that that I think that they did decide to go the player for BooBoo did decide to go acrobat, and add that to the fact that that particular lifestyle is not a safe lifestyle, if you will.
No,
and
it's really not.
Need to, and you really need to impress very early on your children that if you don't listen to mom and dad, especially when things get down to the wire, that yes, you can get seriously injured or died or die. Get killed.
Get died.
Yeah, you can get died. Yes, so now you now have purple skin instead of red skin. At any rate,
ooh, man.
You know, I think parents do need to be a little more physically, you know, disciplinarian, possibly. I mean, I could pose that. I'm not necessarily saying that I agree with it, but you know, in that kind of a situation.
Well, we're not talking about that here or there in like the real world per se. And I can totally get what you're saying when it comes to like context. I'm all about the context and context and all that stuff, nuance. I think that I feel like I actually genuinely think that one of them would be all for it in the sense of like, yeah, that kid deserved that. Yeah, roughhouse. Like whether or not it would be like a ploy to be all like, I'm on the Tsar's side. I'm on her side. Yes. Get good favor. Or it could genuinely be like, yeah, that kid may or may not have gone a little too far. Time to rein him in. Time to rein her in. Come on. But the other one I feel like would be a bit more like a, oh, probably not. Probably, I don't, yeah. I think that it actually might have been more like that, where it's one and then the other. And, yeah, I think it would open up a dialogue between those two. Moving right along, what do you think how do you think they would respond to the abandoned temples, both in the mountain and in the library? Do you think that they would have much? Do you think they'd have much interest in the Herald Temple at all, or do you think it would be more of a, this is weird. It's weird that we can't remember it when we leave.
Are you talking about the temple in the upper story of the library, I assume?
That one, and of course the one in the mountain. Where you fought the Gnolls.
Oh yeah.
Because I get the feeling that Osyrus would take more intrigue in it than BooBoo did. Because I feel like BooBoo would be, and this is just kind of the impression I got from the player and how the character was shaping out, genuinely felt more like along for the ride, rather than say, I'm here to complete a quest. But I feel like, assuming that Osyrus actually had the same influence.
Osyrus' player knew everyone that was there in the first place.
Yes.
So I don't think that the player for BooBoo really kind of ever felt comfortable really, getting down and expressing themselves. So I think by the time that we would have reached that point in the campaign, I think they very much would have finally started to show their I hate to use the term, but true colors, if you will. So,
and that's
it would
fair.
definitely
That's
have
believable,
been,
yeah.
So I don't think that we as a group ever really got to see BooBoo or the player really relax enough to be themselves and to really play the character. So I mean, which goes to show that this is all just kind of speculative. So,
of course, and that's why we're focusing a bit more mainly on the impression we got from the character, less so from the player. And I feel like as a character, I feel like Osyrus would have more interest in this rather than BooBoo, because Osyrus is the spell slinger. He's the tiefling. He's son of a demon of some kind, and all of a sudden we've got this temple that's fairly gothic, fairly dark, and the first time you see it, it's infested by fucking... Oh, yeah, totally. First time you see it, it's infested with gnolls that seem to live here, and the second time you encounter it, it's fucking, oh, shit, this is where you lost your eye. Oh, okay, then. I feel like Osyrus and BooBoo would, I feel like their response to the story of Leon and Alanon, I think they both would have been very intrigued by it.
Well,
and this is jumping ahead a little ways, but one of the Kalu got himself the sentient sword of the Sword of Vengeance, and I did this little bit of a twist where the prisoner that my players were transporting did an Arcana check. She found out what that sword was, and she decided, okay, all I need to do is injure him, and he'll be compelled to kill me. I'm going to die anyway. I'm going to go out my terms. She bites him. He fails his wisdom saving throw. He's compelled to attack her until she's dead. And at the end of it...
We spent an hour and a half trying to stop him.
Oh, man, I was not expecting that snowball. I wouldn't have done it. I would not have done it had that happened. And I knew that was going to happen if I had known. But so the gnome somehow manages to get the sword out of his grip and runs to this old forge that he knows is there. And he goes over there and he starts to burn it. He starts to heat it up and he starts to hammer on it, starts to break it. He eventually breaks it, causing the vengeful spirit that's inside to come forth, rushes over to our half-orc barbarian, and is unhostile. Almost like a lost puppy. Except, you know, an undead spirit of vengeance and death.
Minor details.
So, eventually, the barbarian and the wraith bond, and the wraith goes into his other sword. And the sword of vengeance is now with him again as a sword of sworn vengeance. So, you know, it still retains much of the benefits and some of the downfalls, but not nearly as severe, because this was a more symbiotic one as opposed to a curse. And every night when he would roll, and we do this thing where when you go to sleep, you roll a d20, and that's the type of dream you got. Crit fails and crit successes have effects, depending on the system you're running. Now, what I did for that was I would also, in secret, roll a d20 of my own. And if he got that same number, he would actually be dreaming through the memories of the wraith in the Sword of Vengeance. Got all 3 memories in like 5 nights. It was ridiculous. Like the first time it happened, I was prepared. Second time it happened, I went, oh, all right. I haven't ironed it out yet. Well, we're doing this. And so since then, I literally had to put almost everything else on the back burner just so I could finish the fucking dream sequences. Which, thank fuck, it wasn't all that many. But anyway, the story basically goes that the Wraith was the previous prince of the, I guess you would say, rightful rulers of Sturmwind before they were taken over. And it's the story of this prince and supposedly his best friend named Alanon. And their bonding and then eventual betrayal, because they themselves are betrayed by the fellow knights and are brutally murdered. And I feel like Osyrus would relate to that. I definitely feel like BooBoo would sympathize, but I'm not quite sure he'd find it funny, given what they had to go through. Yeah. Just to get that.
Right.
Do you think... Oh, no. Well, you fucking acrobat. Yeah, BooBoo wouldn't be the storyteller.
No, Osyrus would be very much more the storyteller, because he did take Charlatan for the back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of course, I don't know how much of the local history he would be familiar with, but, you know.
Probably not all that much, but finding it wouldn't be that much of a big deal for him, I don't think.
No.
Moving along, how do you think the two of them would have responded to Schreiertown, the city, the village of the gnomes? I think BooBoo would have a great fucking time.
Oh, they would have.
I think BooBoo would have a great fucking time.
Well, yeah, with all those kids, and they wouldn't have had any suspicions or you know, So the parents would not have said, "Oh, look, there's something that looks weird. Don't go near them." The parents have been like, "Hey, look at this. We have some entertainment. Go ahead, take our, take over
Yes.
entertaining our kids for the next couple hours. We'll have fun."
Oh
I
yeah,
guarantee
like
you that's
yeah,
what.
fucking totally. I can totally see that. Oof, that would have been. I think you guys would have spent a bit more time in Schreiertown had those two been around. I feel like those two alone would have
Of course,
given.
this
Yeah,
did come on the heels of that horrible
that
uh,
horrible hour and a half fight,
well, not just that, but
the massacre at the
yeah,
Bigfoot
the
Mill.
massacre at the mill. Uh-huh.
Hmm.
And I guarantee people, they would
The
have been
butcher, yeah, yeah, the butchery of Bigfoot Mill. What's the?
slaughter.
I was
The
trying to go
slaughter.
for alliteration.
Oh,
Like butcher, butchering.
yeah, I get it. I get it. Yeah, I suppose butchery at Bigfoot Mill would be a decent way of phrasing it. Sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, but coming kind of on the heels of that, because that essentially did happen like the day before. I mean,
It
in
did.
character
Yeah.
timeline. So, I mean, if they could have gotten over the shock of that, they definitely could have, really enjoyed themselves in that village, because it was a very much safe. It was a very safe place.
Mm-hmm.
The people were very open and friendly, so we didn't necessarily have to worry about the townsfolk turning on us for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
You know, but so yeah, I think BooBoo would have definitely enjoyed it, and I'm fairly certain that the two of them would have had a lot of fun.
All right. Next question. What do you think the two of them would have felt about hearing the rumors of Dreifel? And do you remember that?
I do remember it because
Okay.
we were coming up on the bridge,
Mm-hmm.
and we did have the rumors.
The rumors, more or less, well, it's a historical fact that Dreifel's ruler at the time was a dark necromancer who basically started the conflict on in the fields, which eventually spread to like 5 different armies converging on one spot.
Ah,
Yeah, so it was dark necromancer, necromantic forces, and recent at what the guards told you was that recent rumors have been surfacing that necromantic activity has been spotted in Dreifel again, and so they're upping their security a bit.
mm-hmm.
And
Oh, I hope the fact we went back into the Dragon's Force isn't going to come back to bite us in the ass.
the what?
Well, the fact that we went into the Dragon's Force rather than taking care of whatever's going on in Dryfell, I just hope that doesn't come back to bite us in the butt. But then, of course, that we were led there with Arfelt, or at least the
Yeah.
entity that calls itself Arfelt.
I forget. Were you the one that conversed with the Hunter's Hall about the Rawl and Abalok and Bloodloon drowning? Were you there?
I was not there. No.
Okay, yeah, because they were doing some roughhousing stuff. They were doing some stuff that the players didn't necessarily like, and they were a little confused as to why the Hunter's Hall weren't doing anything about them. So they asked a question about them. But if you weren't there, I shan't say anything.
Did they ask of the seer, or?
No, just the chef, actually. Just ask, like the chef
yeah.
or someone.
Yep, I was not there for that.
Yeah.
So.
Anyway, I feel like I honestly get the impression that BooBoo would be kind of insulted at the idea of marionetting corpses. I get the feeling that I'm kind of switching gears here. I'm kind of setting this as like kind of like a writer rather than like a player, I
Yeah.
feel like I would write BooBoo to have this respect for the dead that is uncommon in these lands. Like resurrecting the dead is like fine within a certain amount of time, but like necromancy, zombies, skeletons, stuff like that, ghosts, I feel like he would have an issue with that, and I feel like he would personally detest those who do that specifically for war, even. And I think Osyrus would have a similar vein, but I also feel like he would have this distant kinship to the idea because of the inherent sorcerer nature.
Yeah.
I feel like it would be one of those differences between the characters where, they're both on the same side, but, one has an intolerance for something and the other's like, it's just kind of here
It
nor
is
there.
what it is.
It is what it is, yeah. I feel like Alvin would be their best fucking friend. He would be their best fucking friend.
Oh,
Alvin,
they would get into so much trouble together. And
yeah,
I'm really
Alvin,
glad
the gnome
if
rogue.
if there's any reason that I would be glad that those two players or at least those two characters are gone, it would be because those two and Alvin would be impossible to rein in. At least not
It
without
would
actually
be
like physically smacking them around a
impossible.
little bit. Yeah.
It would be impossible. And moving on to the last location before we do the home stretch on NPCs, what do you think they would have felt about the Hunter's Hall and their nature of we are a collective of hunters who literally wear our trophies as armor?
Well, in all honesty, Roland does something similar. Now his motives are slightly different, because in Roland's case, it's a method of honoring, a fallen, I wouldn't honoring a fallen, contestant, if you will. So, but yeah, with the hunters, it's quite a bit more an issue of trophy. Okay, so I guarantee you that the first thing that BooBoo would have done when he got in there would be whip out his bagpipes and check out the acoustics of this massive hollowed out hall, which I guarantee you would have resonated like nobody's business.
Oh man, I can totally see that actually.
Especially when because the hall itself is kind of a three-dimensional egg shape, if you will, on the interior. There are like
the
different
walls
levels and whatnot, but
themselves
when you
are
have-
straight up and down. The walls themselves are straight up and down. It's more so when you get to the very top when it actually starts to be more dome-like.
Yeah, but the acoustics in such an area, if you look at the image of the opera house in Australia, it's actually kind of a similar setup. So I guarantee you that the acoustics in there would have been absolutely phenomenal. And I know that, yeah, the first thing that BooBoo would have done would be to whip out his bagpipes and just start skirling it to his heart's content.
Absolutely. I can totally see that.
And I know that Osyrus. I don't know how Osyrus would have really reacted.
Do you think it would have been more
Osiris
indifference?
Well, I think that Osyrus would have probably had a good time discussing magic with the Iron Forged
The Warforged, yeah.
that we met there.
Mm-hmm.
Warforged, thank you. Yes. Who was an interesting character. Roland rather enjoys discussing magic with him, but is a little hesitant as far as the unnatural nature of the person.
Oh yeah. I made that guy on a whim. He was originally.
He's a cool character.
Thank you very much. It was literally just going to be some old woman, and then while I was doing the motion for like the scrolls, I got the idea for a mechanical like motion of the fingers. Warforged. Sorry, old lady, you're out.
Yep. We're getting the Warforged in here. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that Osyrus would have enjoyed. Now, here's a question for you as the DM, because it was when we came back from bracing the goblins in the Underdark and the Drider. After that was when you gave us all the the different characters, the gifts. So like
okay.
the
You want to know what magic items that they?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, what would you have given them for magic items?
I do remember one of them. I was going to be bestowing BooBoo the Joly a bag of tricks.
Ooh.
And if I remember correctly, there are 3 colors to the bag of tricks, and each one corresponds to a different type of mischievous illusion. So I was literally going to have BooBoo pick one of the 3 different colored bags, and that would be the bag of trick. And, it was going to be, I think it's got like 20 uses in it, and then it, is either rendered inert and becomes a basic bag again, or you can do something and it becomes, magical again. But I do know that was one of them that was going to be given to him just inherently, because the character of a clown with the shovel, bagpipes, and a bag of tricks, fucking hell, that would have been so much fun. That would have been so much fun to handle. And the creativity behind when BooBoo would use it, whether he would use it for the benefit of himself or the party, I feel like the bag of tricks would have been the perfect fucking gift, especially considering that it's not an item that is explicitly combat, so you need to use it outside basically, or you can do it how Alvin accidentally solves his problems and do stuff that are unorthodox during combat, and it turns out to be the best fucking decision. That fucking arrow, man.
Yeah.
That arrow ruined the entire purpose of a sneak attack. Now, as far as Osyrus is concerned, I really don't know. I feel like I would do a similar thing for Osyrus that I did for Roland, where I would give him an item that is clearly very useful, doesn't really have an expiration date, but it isn't explicitly for combat purposes. I can't tell you what it would have been. I'd have to think about it for a little bit longer. But I think it would have played more into... I think it would have played more into the idea that Osyrus and BooBoo are a pair. They're a duo. So I think it would have been an item very similar to that. Now, as far as Fiona is concerned, because we didn't actually mention her in the magical item I'd give her.
That's right.
Technically speaking, she already had a Javelin of Lightning. She already had the Javelin of Lightning, I think, right? Or the very least it was...
to her?
I don't know if we gave it to her or not, but I do remember wanting to give her the Javelin of Lightning. Because, fuck it. And then along came Zeus. I feel like that would have been a pretty cool thing for Fiona to have. Definitely leaning into the combat side of who Fiona was. More so because the player was less inclined for role-playing. And maybe that's the wrong way to look at it. Maybe I should have given you guys items that are the exact opposite of your play style typically. Maybe I should have thought about something like that, But I figured it would...
I don't know. I think that's a good something to no, I think the things that you gave us that you did give us, have come in handy. We have used them a number of times, so I can't complain about those at all.
I'm just waiting for the day where Kalu realizes he's still got those potions of invisibility. I'm just waiting for the day.
Uh-huh.
Because if I'm being honest here, his player has so many D&D sessions. I don't know if he keeps track of the items in his inventory.
Well, I think he keeps his inventory like electronically.
Yeah.
So he probably does have them there at some point in time, and he got them like 3 or 4 sessions ago.
Not 3 or 4 sessions ago, because we still had Morgan for a couple more sessions after that.
Well,
we had
did he actually
Omen.
trade them to Morgan?
He traded one of them. He traded one of them to Morgan, and she gave him a potion of fire giant strength.
Okay, which she still hasn't used, unless you use it while I was gone.
Nope, has not.
He's probably saving it for a boss fight.
Perhaps, yeah.
That would be my guess. But Hill Giant Strength, that's like what, +3?
It's a 23 in strength.
Okay.
No, it's either strength of 25 or 23. I can't remember which one it was. But it definitely gives you like a +7 at minimum. Which I thought was a nice thing to give Morgan, who otherwise has a strength of 5.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice thing to do. It was like, oh, your lowest stat is 5? Here's something that quadruples it. But no, yeah. But
when you think about it,
yeah,
you should be glad that he hasn't put it together yet. Because if he gave that to the Warforged and said, "Hey, can you turn this into a belt for me?" you'd be in trouble.
Well, I don't think you'd be able to turn it into a belt. Like, extracting essence from, like, slain monsters and stuff like that is one thing. Taking essence from a liquid that's already been filtered through...
Yeah, but it is magic in and of itself.
You're not wrong, but the process the way I've decided how the process works kind of conflicts with that, you know? So I'm going to lean towards no on that one, but...
Yeah.
I know what you're thinking. I mean, there are belts of giant strength, and I genuinely considered that. Mm-hmm. But I decided that, consumable items are something that's more reasonable.
You should give Elvin a belt of giant strength.
Oh, gosh.
That would be hilarious. Okay, you're going to have to choose between being a dex character or being a strength character.
Here you go.
Yeah. At any rate, so unfortunately, it is time for me to call it. But
can you survive 10 more minutes? Do you think?
Yeah, I suppose.
Cut it off at 9, because there are 3 NPCs that I feel like it's appropriate to ask. The first one being Orion, because I remember that you said that Fiona would not like him because he's a bit of a dick. I get the feeling that Osyrus and BooBoo would actually like him because of the way he handles people.
I think you're right. I mean, he's got a pretty decent charisma, at least, right? I mean,
he does. Yeah, it's not terrible, but it's not his strongest stuff.
Well, obviously, yeah, he's a ranger, so his dex and strength are pretty high up there, which is appropriate for a ranger. But
he is something of a leader, so he's got to have that charisma in there. He's got to have that charisma, being a leader, something of a diplomat.
So yeah. Curiosity, does he have the? Because I think leadership is a feat. Does he have the leadership feat?
He does not. I thought about it, but the problem is the leadership actually only gives allies temporary HP. It doesn't actually do anything else, really. Mm-hmm. So it was one of those, like, you really have to know the type of encounter you're going into to justify using that.
Yeah, and that is one of the more pathetic feats in the book. I mean, unfortunately, in previous incarnations of the game, if you took leadership, I think
inspiring leader. That's the feat's name. Inspiring leader. Yeah.
But if you did take that, you actually did get like certain numbers of followers. And that so you basically just had this following that just kind of sprung up from somewhere that you could, um, call on for assistance in different situations and whatnot. So
Mm-hmm.
in previous, like I said, in previous versions of the game, it was a lot more effective and that did a lot more stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyhow.
So yeah, I feel like those two would like Orion a bit more than Fiona would. I think that they actually might have liked Orion the most out of the current party.
Out of the group?
Yeah,
Probably.
I think they would have actually liked him a lot more than everyone else did.
Kylo's kind of indifferent to him.
Mm-hmm.
Roland is a little bit suspicious of him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a little, like, he doesn't think that he can completely trust him. But he does admire his skill as a fighter, that's for sure. So
Alvin, Alvin is his subordinate.
Yeah.
He treats Orion like a boss. So so how about we kind of already went through Zavanna. Kind of already went through that. So you know what?
We could chat about how they would have responded to the undead swarm.
Well, I kind of figured
would
that
have been interesting.
I kind of not the undead swarm. How about the for the second of 3 NPCs? How do you think they would have responded to Carmilla Elgard, the gnome cleric?
Ooh.
And for that matter, how do you think they would have responded if they found out that she was possessed when Carmilla, in quotations, had sex with Kalu?
I know that. Well, okay. I would posit that the very nature of Osyrus being a tiefling, probably having had some rather negative experiences with clerics in the past in general, probably would have distrusted her right off the bat.
Okay.
I mean that would make sense to me. BooBoo? Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question.
Because for the most part, Carmilla was one of the more, I guess, active NPCs for Stormwind before the swarm hit. She was the character that everyone pretty much wanted to see for one reason or another, and she being possessed was ultimately the reason for the swarm in the end place anyway. So, the idea, of these characters interacting with her kind of struck me as interesting.
I would be willing to bet that that Osyrus probably would have spent a little more time in the magic shop of magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or hanging out with Snake.
Yes. Yes, I think he definitely would have enjoyed him, and of course wherever Osyrus goes, I guarantee you that BooBoo would have followed as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I feel like those two would have had a ton of fun with the magic shop of magic and the Snake proprietor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, I shudder to think the type of deals that they would have made with him. I shudder to think, because they would have. They would have.
Or at least tried.
Yeah, they found out, we can get cool shit by just working with you guys? Well, okay, let's do it. What do you want?
Right? Tell you what, you give me this, I'll just owe you a favor. Which could have been some really that's what I'm saying. It could have been some real interesting plot fulcrums.
Mm-hmm. I can totally see that. So Carmilla would have been more of a non-issue, you think, but the magic shop of magic would have been the go-to spot.
For them, yeah. I don't think that they would really had too much reason to go see a cleric.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at that point, Roland had his eye still stolen.
Yep.
So he definitely had his reasons. Kalu, well, yeah. Stuffed gnome. Anyhow, so yeah, he had his. Did Alvin really didn't have any reason to go see her except for putting another notch on his belt, if you will. Really,
He wanted to see her because he was at the time intent on becoming a cleric himself. And the last time he tried to ask a favor from Gond, his god, it didn't pan out for him. So the idea that a cleric would be able to help him out with that was, reason enough for him to, give it a try.
And it does make and the tack that he did take, at least in my opinion, does make a lot more sense than just coming pure on cleric, because, I mean, a cleric of Gond, in my opinion, would be far more on the side of it. Would be much more of an artificer than what we would, classically know as a cleric. Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
So
see that.
plus rogue and artificer really do mesh well together a lot more than rogue cleric, because
almost becomes like a hitman class actually when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
But one last NPC, and then we can send you off. Well, technically 3, unless of course you want to talk about Osyrus. What do you think that actually, no. Which one do you think they would find more interesting, or more in terms of like interaction-wise for Osyrus and BooBoo? Do you think they would find more interest and dialogue with Osyrus, or do you think that they would find more interest and dialogue with Rawl, Abalok, and Bloodloon Drowning? Because
I think Osyrus would find more interest in the three musketeers, if you will, more than Osyrus. Now, don't get me wrong, Osyrus was definitely a fascinating character, but that's not really the to seek out information wasn't well. If we had gone down the tack of finding out that Osyrus's family was killed by vampires because they were vampire hunters.
Yep.
At that point, she probably would talk with Osyrus to see if she could get any information on the vampires themselves, if we hadn't resolved that yet.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the only reason for her to really seek out information. But for BooBoo, I don't know.
I feel like BooBoo would try to make everyone laugh regardless. I think that BooBoo would actually probably have more interest in the Three Stooges, because you see someone like Rawl doesn't move hardly ever and doesn't laugh. You think, challenge accepted. And I think BooBoo would have gone out of his way to try to make his ass laugh.
Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see
BooBoo
that.
probably would have succeeded in making Abalok laugh, because he's definitely the most open to laughter. He's definitely the most open to emotional outbursts. Bloodloon Drowning has a limit that can break him. Rawl, good luck. I actually kind of go the opposite way from you in that I think Osyrus would have had more intrigue in Osyrus.
Okay.
Because I feel like Osyrus, different god. Osyrus.
Actually, Orion wasn't a god. Orion was just the hunter.
Oh, it was? I thought he was like a... Okay.
He wasn't a deity. He wasn't a deity. He was a mortal.
Gotcha.
But he did, actually, if I recall correctly, the constellations, he's actually fighting Taurus.
Ah, okay, I get you. So it's not God, but it's still mythology. Gotcha. Yep. I feel like
there's still mythology, but
I feel like Osyrus would have found more intrigue in the limbless seer in this magical as fuck tower than the Three Musketeers down there. I feel like he probably would have seen those three as, oh, great, another trio who think they're badass. I kind of feel like that's how Osyrus would see those three, if I'm being totally honest. And even if we did go through the vampire storyline, at your level, it would have been more so confirmation and less like resolving of the storyline. It would have been the confrontation and be all like, oh, yes, well, I killed your family and you are survivors, so I shall kill you too! And then, you would go on for, the rest of the campaign with that. But I honestly feel like those three would have been a hoot and a holler with those two clowns. And I think, like I said before, the part that I genuinely wish we could have done was the fact that upon hearing that Osyrus was an orphan, I instantly had the idea for the very first actual story arc, and it was going to focus around the very player that was the very first to be invited to. So I felt like it would have been a very special, not necessarily like a thank you, but like a very special send off to the idea that, hey, you gave me this chance. Here you go. First story arc's about your character. There you go. And the fact that BooBoo's best friend would have been, so involved in something like this, I feel like would have given the character and the player, respectively, a nice sense of, I helped you with something. I feel like that's the biggest regret. And I think we'll end this by saying why the three players left, because we don't... Well, no, we did talk about why Fiona's character left, didn't we? It was literally just because...
scheduling conflicts.
It was scheduling conflicts and the fact that we just weren't able to get together for X amount of time, that she just decided, I'll just peace out before it consumes things.
And I think the player even stopped working on John's not too well. She did stop working at Papa John. I honestly don't know what she's doing right now, but her girlfriend did come back to the store.
Mm-hmm.
So Figgy is working there again.
Yep. Well, that happened while I was still there. She came back
to the store for like 2 or 3 months, and then suddenly COVID hit, and blah blah blah. So.
And I was gonna say something. Oh yeah, the players. The reason why the characters left was because BooBoo had to peace out. Now the reason I was given was school and work. And don't get me wrong, I can totally see that being legit. However, the problem with me is that I'm a very suspicious man by nature. I'm very cautious, and I'm very... I just... For whatever reason, because of how I was raised, or because of how I was treated growing up, I always suspect the worst as opposed to the best as to why something happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's much of a secret to say that the player and myself would have complete opposite views on a particular social topic. And I don't want to think this is why, but when the player left, I couldn't help but feel like that was the reason. Like at some point in time,
I
like
would
she just kind of
actually disagree with you on that. I would actually disagree with you on that. I think, because if BooBoo's player had come to this decision that they felt offended or afraid with the group, I guarantee you that Osyrus's player would have done the same thing at the same time.
You're probably right. You're probably right in that regard.
It's quite possible that the player themselves were a little like neurotic and imagined something like that happening and talk themselves out of attending on a regular basis. But I I could definitely see that happening, but I don't think we gave them any evidence. I mean, you did a pretty good job, at least in my opinion, of trying to say, hey, we're here to play D&D and have a good time, and not to talk politics. So
I thank you for that. By the way, actually, I like to think I did my best for what I thought was the best idea at the time.
The player themselves, and even and I've talked about this with Osyrus' player,
Mm-hmm.
has a lot of social anxiety.
That's right. I was told about that at some point. Yes,
Yeah.
actually, I
I
vaguely
don't think
remember that.
I honestly don't think that it's anything that we did. I thought that they just said, oh, this is, they probably just got to a point where they were like, oh, this
I
is
feel
too,
a bit too claustrophobic.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
So
okay, you know what? Yeah, I am willing to accept that reason for BooBoo the Joly's departure from the campaign.
mhm.
Osyrus's character was less voluntary, pretty much, because his player was a manager at where we worked at the time, and the schedule was not kind to her in any fucking way. Like that was, I don't know if you were
Yeah.
around for like the big part of the day or how much you remember about the scheduling, but there was only
Well,
like there
and
was like
the very nature of the business does
there was
not
there was like
does
two managers. There were like two managers for an entire week, and that's not including the general manager. So like three managers for the same store for a week that's open
and
from 8 in the morning
it's a
till
busy
2 in the
store.
morning.
It's a busy store too.
Mm-hmm. So
Yeah.
at the time, we had set up for like, was it 6 or 7 back then? Or was it
No,
always
it was
5?
like it.
Because I feel like it wasn't always 5 o'clock. I feel like it might have actually been 7.
No, it wasn't 7, but I think it was 6.
Yeah.
I don't think we. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we did start. Yeah, getting together at 6.
Mm-hmm.
Um.
But yeah, like because
Yeah.
of the fact that management position doesn't really give you all that much time off, and because Wednesday was like the only day that everyone
Well,
had free at some point, we
plus,
just went with
plus
Wednesday.
it's the nature of the. It's yeah. Well, plus it's the nature of the business that you might be scheduled to be off at, say, 7 o'clock
Yeah.
at night, but if we're too busy, no, you're going to be getting some extra hours in. It's just how it's
Mm-hmm. But yeah,
it's
yeah.
just the nature of the beast.
And
So,
it I don't remember what the cutoff point was, but I remember talking to her on multiple occasions going, I really hope you can come back. I really hope you can come back. I really hope you can come back. And eventually kind of, walking up and going, hey, I know that neither one of us wants to have this conversation, but at the same time, we're getting to a point in the campaign where you're either going to be too far behind or it'll be artificial as all hell to just up you
write you
to
back
where
in.
everyone else and to write you back in. So if you feel like you can make it, come on in. We'll keep on going. No harm, no foul. But once we get past this point, it's going to be too high a level. It's going to be too far in the story that, and if you haven't been able to make it this point, it's probably going to be really disjointed to know about all of the stuff that happened in the campaign, all of this development that
And
happened with the characters.
you have to be brought up. We'd have to spend
Yeah.
20, 30 minutes just getting you, caught up on what's happened up until now.
Yeah. And the fact that, at that point in time, there was only X amount of sessions that was actually attended. So,
Right.
It's one of those kind of in the boat of where, you're not actually missing much if you don't come back because you only had like 4 or 5 sessions anyway. So,
Yeah.
but ultimately, like I said near the beginning of the stream, even after that point, I was constantly looking at the door, hoping against all fucking odds that she would be let out of work and she would come in
Yeah.
there with that backpack and that on all those fucking badges and pins, and she would come out, sit down, pull out her character sheet, and start rolling with the rest of us. I would constantly look at the door, and I would constantly be looking around, hoping that I would fucking see that neon green fucking hair walking down. All the way up to the end, and even for a couple weeks after that, I was, looking at the door, hoping that, come on in. But Osyrus and BooBoo the Joly, the clowns that ultimately could have and should have inspired the very first story arc, and would have made the entire campaign that much brighter in terms of humor and and creativity,
and also made us a lot more, effective as well, because a bard and a sorcerer would have been excellent contributions. And I wish that. There are times where I wish that I had gone with either wizard or sorcerer for my first character rather than druid. But not that I regret making Roland or role playing with him, but
I get you,
especially like as you know, they're a very different class to play.
Very different. Totally.
Well,
different.
they're very much not straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
They're very much it's a subtle. I think so they're a subtle class to play. So.
Absolutely.
But yeah, a sorcerer and a bard would definitely have been it
would have changed the dynamic so much.
Yeah,
the dynamic would have been vastly different. And I feel like if the players were here today, barring all of the political bullshit that happened in 2020, I genuinely feel like the two of them would have had a very fun time with all the characters, all the locations, the combat encounters, the puzzles, what little there were. I genuinely feel like they would have had a great time, and I feel like I would have had a very fun time with them, as well as Fiona's character. And I think there's only one or two characters that I feel like I didn't enjoy playing with. And one of them was only because I just never met her before in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I would have had to warm up. I would have had to warm up to her. But yes, the other one was Tiberius. But
it would definitely have been interesting. It would have been interesting to see Kalu and Fiona double teaming that Knoll, that giant. What the hell was
Flind?
Knoll, huh? The Flind.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. That would have been crazy. But
oh yeah.
All right. Gotta let you go.
Excellent
talk, and then next week will be Tiberius, or are we going to go Alabaster?
Well, we're going to be skipping Alabaster entirely, actually, because his player didn't actually leave until Giorno was around, and because I'm going to be printing off these characters and painting them and gifting them to the respective players, if I can fucking find them. In the case of these two here.
Well, I'll tell you what. You give me the two for Osyrus and BooBoo, and I'll make sure that the appropriate people get them.
Okay, we can do that then. We can do that. I'll trust you to handle the others too, because I don't know if Breach and Almighty are in the same place, let alone Tiberius. I don't know if those two are in the same place.
Yeah, they are.
They're all in the same. Oh, never mind. I'll just give them to you then.
Keith is currently the opener.
Nice.
And Rory left for a while, and then he came back. So he's now back at the shop again as well. So anyway, but you can hand off to me, and I can get those taken care of. No problem.
Nice. But yeah, we'll be doing the villain characters for those guys specifically.
Ooh, okay.
It'll be a nice change of pace, and we can think about. So I can tell you about I can finally tell you the backstory of the unicorn. I can finally tell you her backstory.
I have to admit that was one of my favorite stories to talk about after that happened, because that was hilarious.
Yeah, he did the one fucking thing that
freaking Tsundere
Yeah.
Jeez. All right. I gotta go.
Yeah.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
And that is all for the stream tonight. Good night, all.